This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening mind.
I entered in silence, intellect and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just a church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening
We
mind.
speak of capitis, diminution, and trust law with grace, pulling veils from the statutes that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn, and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was a corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, when status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the astrological signs, the cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the mind.
You said know thyself but gave no guide, until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe.
I should know, 'cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is true, yes. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy holiday, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science, a learning experience for all ages. And we are so happy to be with you tonight. Again.
Picking up where we left off.
Actually, yes.
Got to do a little read.
Yeah. Last segment, we began a powerful and necessary transmission entitled Discerning the Shift, Managing the Frequency of the Now. Yes. The energy was potent, and you know, as many of you witnessed, our beloved Grand Sheik, he flowed in his natural, unscripted rhythm. And though we intended to cover a 5-part journey, we only made it through maybe less than half of what we intended, and that's okay, because what needed to be said was said, and your souls received it. Your souls received it. But Grand Sheik and I had more to share, not just concepts, but but frequencies, but
Yeah.
guidance,
Yes.
activation. So we're here again tonight, what we're calling part 2, a continuation and expansion, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the completion of what we started. So if you missed part 1, we ask that you please be sure to watch it. I should have linked it down at the bottom. I didn't, but be sure to watch it for context and continuity. Sheik?
Anyway, so we open up, and good to see you again.
It's good to be seen.
And yes. Anyway, Islam, assalamu alaikum, shalom, vadi makum, bon abort. Anyway, thank you, Dr. G, for your usual bright introductions. And as you had said, we have a lot of work to do. And one thing interesting, like when you get into really looking at the frequencies, you still pick up frequencies. So
absolutely,
I want to be more cognate to stay more focused. Just to condense, to keep it condensed.
Well, for full disclosure, y'all, Sheik and I normally just kind of bounce off each other extemporaneously, but just to try to kind of clean things up a little bit, and we literally are trying to
stay more condensed.
Well, to script what we wanted to say, to kind of and so
and I want to reduce the ad lib because you already know
he'll tell you,
as soon as you open up the window and I get some air, I'll go into something else.
No, he'll tell you about what happened over in Camden, New Jersey in 1967. And he'll talk to you like you were there. You remember that. So we're working on trying to keep ourselves on point, even though we're gonna veer off because we are both very extemporaneous, and as we talk and look like we had a really deep conversation last week after last week's show, but we realized that sometimes one of us
we have limited time,
right? But I mean, we could actually stay here for 4 or 5 hours if we want to, but we don't want to. No, we could, y'all. But anyway, but what I'm saying is that a lot of times we'll be saying one thing, we scripted one thing, and then it sparks another thought in the other presenter, or even in the one that's saying, I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. So it takes us on another journey. But tonight,
but we're going to try to keep condensed and less ad-libbing deliberately. Anyway, so thanks, Dr. G. So let's recap some of the many things, many of you who are listening to the House of Reawakening Minds already know. And that is when we remind ourselves that the owners of the United States Corporation Company created the birth certificate not for what people think it was for, but actually for an attachment or routing for the Sister QV Trust operations. And they also created what is called a double stock trust. Just keep that in mind, right? Now, that's an ecclesiastical instrument, and it means that the state, the corporate state, presumes and assumes you, the living being, to be dead and lost at sea. And so everything that is presented to you as the living sentient man or woman to sign, and everything you agree to consciously and unconsciously in those processes, unless you're awakened and declared, it is treated as a commercial agreement, binding agreement between yourself and a corporate fiction and the corporate state, who takes this superior position in the contract. So understand, the moment that birth certificate trading instrument was issued, it was monetized. And you, unbeknownst to yourself and undisclosed to you, were held and became a surety and the collateral, the surety, for their corporate debt presented as the national debt. Not because you agreed, but because your parents did not know. And neither did their parents know. And that is how the deep deception goes, how deep the deception goes, and the misrepresentation. But once you're aware of these operations, you can no longer be bound by an unconscionable contract. That's what is referred when you categorically is referred to as unconscionable contracts. Now, and that's what this shift is about. discerning the agreements or pseudo agreements or presumed agreements that you didn't know you made, and revoking them in law and in spirit. What have you to say about that, Dr.?
Well, and this is why tonight's continuation is so critical, because many of us are awakening to who we truly are, but we haven't yet learned, a lot of us, how to stand. You've been walking this walk for a long time, but how to stand in it, how to walk through the world without falling back into the old contracts and the old language. You're always getting on me about the
how
language
within contracts,
right, and the old programming. So it's important. It's so important. Yeah.
Yes. Now, so what we need to understand, that everything that has been constructed as our reality is structured around vibrational compliance. That's because the nature of your thoughts produce electricity. Your heart generates a magnetic field, which we all know that. Now, so together, the thought, the electricity from your thoughts and the magnetic field from your heart form your electromagnetic signature. Now, this is a known component about the human genome, right? And so the matrix that we're in, artificial matrix that we're in, was constructed by the owners of the United States Corporation Company to hijack that soul signature, that magnetic signature. So to keep you emitting fear, guilt, shame, etc., these and those are the frequencies that power the artificial world that they constructed, that they imprison humanity within. Now they can't operate on love because it's not in them, nor their intent.
Right.
Now, so they can't feed off of sovereignty, because sovereignty is divine in nature. And that is why they have to keep your light or your cognizance of self distorted. So when we talk about managing vibration, it's not just a metaphor, it's a science, it is law, it is survival.
Wow.
Dr. G.
Yeah, that brings us to the most important question for this section. Now, how do I manage my vibration when everything around me is designed to lower it?
It's orchestrated to do so.
Absolutely. Because as I digress just a little bit, the conversation we had today had to do with the feeling of that about the weather. And I was asking Grand Sheik, does he ever recall there being a summer or a time when we had this much rain and bad weather? And we began to talk about the deliberate, perhaps what's deliberate on the part of the corporation to create these gloomy scenarios that all during the work, all during the week, when it should be sunny and so forth, to the summer you could enjoy it after work, but instead you're swimming in rain and or you're somewhere where they're having floods to the extent or hurricanes or earthquakes or fires or things have been going on, a lot this year that I can't even recall a time when we,
one thing after another.
Right. And what we're saying is that, like I said, these are the things that they designed to lower our vibration. But how do you manage it? You manage it by creating what I call vibrational rituals, and not necessarily religious practices, but daily habits that keep your frequency high. You gotta have morning silence. You gotta get up and not let the cell phone. I'm working on this, y'all. Not let the cell phone be the very first thing that you pick. Not let it be the last thing you see, or the first thing that you see. In the morning. Breath work, learning how to breathe and keep your frequency high. Like I said, sunlight, and that's one of the things they've been keeping from us. Like, this is a time when we normally get a lot of sun, but sun is at a premium now. You be hard pressed to, you get little glimpses of sun, like something is being,
some people.
Yeah, like something they don't need it like we do. I mean, they need it, but not like we do. And it's like whatever they're doing to dim down their intake of it, shade it, right?
Make opaque.
Actually,
Yes.
it's taking away from us, but as much as possible, find and be in the sun. Sound healing. Last time we picked up, we had our
tuning.
tuning forks, but sound healing. Over there, I have a singing bowls. If you
Yes.
have singing bowls or the different little, the little drums and things that you can do, because sound is healing. Even the people that you speak to. And
Yes.
yes, that includes your kinfolk, right? They can be energy leaks or energy draws. You got to be careful.
And even then, as you interject, the
Yeah.
slight interjection
Right.
is even the tone of your voice. That's why it's so important. Your intent comes in the tone of your voice too.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not being selfish when you choose to protect your peace. I want you to know you're not being, and anybody who is now becoming intentional, now more than ever, it's important that we become intentional about protecting our peace. You're being strategic, because if they can pull you into listen, we gonna digress just a minute. Like, there's so many different things going on. They talk about distractions. So what's going on? And we don't want to throw any shade, but we just want to talk about what's going on. And we were looking at it, is a whole bunch of stuff is out about our beloved Prince of Pan Africa. So, and y'all know who that is. And the interesting part about it is that, we hear people talking and kind of, honing in on what they feel has happened or has not happened, or why it isn't, and if the building is or is it never going to become a school and whatever. And before it was going to be that school, I mean, House of Reawakening Minds sat around the corner from it. So when we go out in our yard, we see the back of the smaller, the gym.
Yes.
The gym. Because we can actually walk out of the House of Reawakening Minds, y'all. Walk around the corner without crossing the street. Just walk around the corner, and we're in the block for the school. Yes. So we absolutely have been seeing or not seeing. We've seen some improvements. At least especially from the outside and so forth. But what I'm saying is that right now that seems to be everybody's conversation. And
yes.
and so, but before that, it was the trial, and
yeah.
then and if it's not that, then it's the list that hasn't been haven't been revealed, and whether or not so and so's and certain folks are on that. And when you realize that all of these and are put out in front of us as distractions and
mixed psychic attacks at the same time.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I would choose not to even give the platform any energy.
Yeah, but it's just
because it's because wish the best for the things that were promised to the people to be done, and leave it at that.
Right. But we were talking about that today, because where a lot of people speculate about certain things. I mean, we right around the corner from the building. And the interesting, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna just say that.
Go past it every day.
No, but I'm gonna say this because years ago, when I was director of housing and that building came available, it was for a couple of years. It was a charter school, and when I was housing director, the charter school, I don't know, they lost their charter and
it just closed
and
it
it closed down.
Totally functional.
And so I put this word out there in the universe that we were going to acquire that and that building around the corner, those buildings, and turn it into something, for our community and so forth and so on. So one of my dear friends, shout out to Sister Freedom. Sister Freedom.
She did a lot of work in the background and has never been credited for it.
Well, she and I,
but we give her a shout out.
Right. The Sister Freedom didn't know that I had put that intention out there to acquire that particular that property. And so when she is very, very familiar with Dr. Yu, and she ended up telling him about that and being very, very instrumental in him, obtaining that. I mean, she promoted him, here in Delaware, and that's, I think, how I first even, even knew about him. You know, back, and I have a picture of him and I stand together. He's holding his book and I'm holding my book. So my poetry book had come out, and he was at House of Reawakening Minds, but he didn't have that building there. So I had put it out there in the atmosphere that we were going to get it. And I said, well, whoever gets the building, they're going to fix it for us right out there.
Well, it only needed to be unboarded and cleaned, really, because it was intact.
Well, and the longer sometimes things sit, you know,
there's cleanup work.
Things became.
But again, you know, props to Sister Freedom.
Yes,
because you know, because she hasn't been given credit, and a lot of people don't know that she was the major move in the background to work towards getting that set up for the children.
That particular,
I think she needs to be credited.
And if y'all don't know Sister Freedom has Unscrambled Minds. Her channel is Unscrambled Minds. And look, she and I went and got massages together yesterday. She took me. I had a great massage. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, as I said, these distractions can lower your field, and if they lower your field, they can control your choices. And so, you know, let's think in terms of protecting, like I said, our peace.
Take the positive and always move to the positive, and don't feed into the negative. You know, we just push that aside and let it bury itself and work for the positive, because there's still a lot of work to be done. But
let's slow down and name this thing for what it is. We've been living, as you said earlier, in a false matrix. It's a grid that's designed to siphon energy, you know, like somebody goes and siphons the gas out of somebody's vehicle and so forth. It's to siphon energy, to extract labor, and to replace truth with narrative,
and to distract. Even that constant battering, even with what we just mentioned about, is part of the draining of positive, because it sends you into negative, because everything that's about that is not something new or something just to be learned, whether people were in denial or not. It was there to see.
Right.
Now, however, let's look to the brighter side. Let's look to the more positive and work towards the positive.
Well, like I said, we were saying the matrix is emotional, it's spiritual, it's technological, it's financial, and it's legal. And if legal is different from lawful. And if you don't know the codes, the symbols, and the language, you know, the language that they've used to trap you, you think that your slavery is freedom. And they told us, like I said, they told us we were free.
They abuse you and get you thinking.
Right. They told us we were free, but they gave us, as you said, a birth certificate, which is actually a bond, and you said without consent, and they trained us to answer to names that are not our own, under a system that isn't organic to our people. Yeah, you know.
Not just that, even when they are transacting business in that such a QV trust, or when they send what they would call bills to their private corporate debt. That's why all the instrumentalities, and I think people are aware of this, because most people who are cognizant of this know that the all cap letters is a routing course to the Sister QV trust. It is not them, and we don't need to go through that.
How we, you know,
they need to be aware of that. That's for people who don't know, because some people, even though we've exposed that like 20-25 years ago, a lot of new people are some of the youth who are not aware of what the Sister QV trust is, and that when they receive mail and they see all the capital letters, that's Sister QV trust. That's a routing to the trust. While we're not getting into that, they need to know that.
Yeah. So, like I said, the name on their license,
it's not you.
On the IRS forms, on the job badge, the Joe badge,
it's not you.
The fictional entity is the straw man, and it's not you.
It's a claim on the trust.
Right.
Then they tie it to you without your knowledge. You say, I receive, or my. When you say my, this is what we talked about before. Whenever you state the possessor to that, then that is contractual.
Right, right.
Continue.
So anyway, like I said, it's tied to what it is. It's like you said, it's tied to the banking system. It's not spirituality. That is commerce. It's commerce, and they've commodified our entire existence. And I remember how I felt when I discovered this, because you get angry. I didn't know until I met Sister Zodiacus L, and then she introduced me to you, and the rest is history.
That's part of the process of managing and administering the trust. That's not
Right, but we don't know this, like I said. So when you, and a lot of you probably like me, when you find out these things, it makes you angry, it makes you sad. It makes you sad even mainly even for your parents, your ancestors, and your grandparents, because
yourself and your children.
They grew up,
and their children.
And then when you try to correct things, I remember when
The resistance that comes.
I remember when I took away Christmas. Oh Lord! But then I have heard other folks. I heard other folks, putting trees up and say that's ours. But still, we know that whole system was, created from something else that didn't have anything to do with us. But because what happens is, the truth liberates, though, even when it hurts.
Knowing what it is,
even when it hurts.
That's how before you can purge, right? Whether you do rituals or not, because rituals are for disciplining yourself, right?
Right.
If you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it.
Can't address
it. You can't meditate on what you don't know. And this is another reason why you brought this up, Dr. G. Continue.
Well, when I'm just saying that the matrix, as I said earlier, keeps us locked in vibrational contracts and emotional patterns, like I said, like fear and guilt and all of those things, and hopelessness, and like you already said that these are these energetic signatures and these soul prints that are created and it helps them to. It's like a honing system.
Yes.
It's like when you emit this, it's like a GPS that allows them to hone and lock in on you and siphon, as I said earlier, to suck the light, the energy from you, the drive to go forward and to conquer and to overcome things and to be victorious in areas, because they don't want you to. Like I said, that's why they got this weather doing what it's doing. That's why they have these chaotic situations. And I don't even know if some of the stuff, Grand Sheik, that they're showing us on the social media, if it's even true. I mean, it might just be imagery.
A lot of that is
movie,
which you already know. A lot of that,
because they put it in movies. So
it's
now what's happening is the line between the fiction and reality is so blurred now, more so now.
Interjection.
Go ahead.
That knowledge of your electromagnetic footprint, i.e., and soul print, is part of what they've been studying since the 30s to come to what they're working out right now internationally in different venues, what they were calling as AI.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. But continue.
No, well, it's not enough though to wake up. We have to exit. I keep hearing it. Exit the contract. We must revoke consent, and not just in paperwork, but in frequency, because that's what we're talking.
Even from a social political perspective, because you're correct on that point. And one way we can keep the matrix, that they keep the matrix intact for controlling the people, is through voluntary participation. This is why even when they're doing the unum sanctum taxation, they'll say voluntary compliance or voluntary tax, and then come around and then attack the people if they reject it as violating, saying that they haven't filed their taxes, which means it's not voluntary.
Well, speaking of Texas, this area recently had an assessment, the whole county. The taxes, the real estate taxes, went up more than double. So it went from, let's say, $648 or something to $1,200 and something. So I'm calling and I'm going, how you gonna just do that? They tell me of the taxes, of the 1,200 and something taxes in the county, 72 notes of that is actually county tax. The other 1,100 and something is for the school system. I'm like, the school system. I don't know how many of you are going through, ask your tax assessment office, the tax assessment office, what portion of your county tax is actually county tax and what part is the school system. Because, and the reason why I'm putting this out there is because the school system has failed. It isn't even worth, to me, the $72.
Interjection. This is what we talked about before, Dr. G. And as we mentioned, and I don't want to get too far off as we always do.
Yeah.
First of all, the War Tax Act of 1917 was never really for service to you and was unlawful in the first place. That was part of the graft system that the United States Corporation Company set up to create and to support an area that they confiscated or annexed. And this is in your Second World War period time that's in controversy and is in a state of war right now. The tax itself is unlawful. This is what people need to understand.
Well,
it doesn't matter what the amount is. See, if someone is arguing the amount, concept is wrong.
Right.
It's not the amount.
It's not even valid.
The tax is a fraud from the door. The amount is a fraud from the door, meaning that if it was 1 penny,
it's still a fraud.
It's unconstitutional. It was never lawful, so we need not get into that. We mentioned it before.
Yeah. If you all are interested, this is the 1917 War Tax Guide, the federal laws covering the income tax, stamp tax, profit tax, business tax, real estate tax, corporation tax, codified, index, explained, illustrated with charts for quick reference. And it's by William Kix Miller.
Now, let me say, because we'll get off again.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
Now, we remind people, House of Representatives, 192, that we've been telling people for decades, review that to get your concepts right so that we don't get off of understanding how the low vibration is used, how the false matrix is maintained. And so this is back to even now, this is the other thing, Dr. G. If one does not contest competently, it stands. And one of the things that we've always tried to do is giving people fundamental outlines on concept, a competent concept to counter the claim. Because this is how they hold it. If you don't claim your birthright, from their position, you waive your birthright. And since they have a signature by your own hand, that the tax is, when you say possessive, my, that's an agreement. And people need to comprehend that we have to encourage our people to stop speaking in the positive possessive of the instrumentalities that they've created to maintain this false matrix.
Right.
And now we'll see how we're getting away.
But it's okay because we spoke about language as frequency also.
Because the language, voice is frequency.
Yes.
Voice is vibration. Even when, say, if you're doing research, right? You not only deal with the vibration of the body, this goes into the experiments they were doing that manifests as what they call Rex 84 and King Alfred Executive Order 11490, or the attack on us with the genocide, which they admit to, which is, we don't know to get it. This is why I remember whenever I mention this, this is what I will be referring to when I be talking about the security page. And then say, because we be dealing with so much. That's why I keep this separate. And once in a while when we're doing stuff, I'll just read that one page to keep people's head clear. Because what happens is that the people get caught in the dogma of it all, and keep, everybody should have this and read this into their family once a week so that they're not distracted by the narrative that's given by any so alleged public servant official operating a United States corporation company, whether federal, state, or municipal. Now, back to what we talked about a few years ago, Dr. G, even when you were waking up to certain levels, because you were already in many ways spiritually open or open-minded, but you were not aware of certain issues. Sure. And when I said to you, when you asked me a few years back, should I go to this place when we have the records of infiltration, actual records, documents? And I say, go there to learn. Right. Because it has to be your learning. Now, this is the deal. This is the same thing when one has this, their statement to the security page, right? Mm-hmm. And you know that this is presented to all persons in all levels of government, but not to the general public, right? Mm-hmm. They're telling you their agenda, and with their membership, they're reminding them of the secrecy of it. Right. But no matter what is done politically, they don't vary off of this. And what confuses the people is when we start believing that these people represent us, and we got to get away from that. But I just want to remind you. Well, they do represent us in a way that we are not. Because we declare dead. Right. That's why when Drawley did the old Canaanite temple to make reversion of a state, what he said, black according to science means death or dead, right? Now, we know etymologically its meaning actually means pale, white spot, pale colors from Old High German. But what he's talking about, he's talking social science, political science, the science of war. But that's why he said the half has not been told. If I told you everything, you go back to sleep. Because we would assume that he's approaching the etymology. He's talking the social engineering. And this is why a lot of people misrepresented the birthright issue. Now, and again, we know. Yeah, this is. Do you want to share it with me to read? Yes. Okay, well, I'll just share this. This is the security. This is derived from King. This is derived because it's important for them to know the source. Okay, from Executive Order 11490 from October 19th, 1969. United States Corporation Company, and that all political so-called public servants for the United States Corporation Company, federal, state, municipal, county, etc., but not necessarily held to the public. So this executive order was authorized October of 1969 to counteract the minority, and in parentheses, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites in their rise from up under the depression and powers that be, the government. Which you're experiencing again now, because they do it in cycles. It says King Alfred, in the event of widespread and continuing and coordinated racial disturbances in the United States, King Alfred, at the discretion of the president, is to be put into action immediately. Participating federal agency, the National Security Council, Central Intelligence Agency, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Justice, Department of Defense, Department of Interior, participating state agencies under federal jurisdiction, National Guard units, state police, participating local agencies under federal jurisdiction, city police, county police. And this is 849 to 899, King of England, is King Alfred. Direct the translation from the Latin of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. And what it says, and this is just the security page, it is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or the automation of society, i.e. the engineering of social automation systems, silent weapons, on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control
and destruction of human life, i.e. slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without the full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said persons or group of persons and the public. The solution of today's problems requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid, with no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity, and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others of similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. And when this came out, it said, welcome aboard this publication. This is in 79. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry, May 1979, 74-1120.
So now you see, this was released in 69.
But it was
69.
But it was already out.
But you already now you understand 2019 COVID operations. It's didn't come from the air. It's part of the biological war.
Right.
Now, being aware that they're attacking the natural biological rhythm of the people. And this is back to why you're even shook, because you need to understand the knowledge of the workings of nature and the human form, bio, etc., is known by them. They have taken this knowledge, the same knowledge that you're sharing, right, to create these artificial jurisdictions and to carry out the genocide right in your face. While we're thinking this stuff just arrived, this stuff was planned decades ago.
Right.
Because remember, this is the publishing date, but this is not the
creation of it.
Right. So even when you go into the John D. Rockefeller, Frederick T. Gates with the Board of Education that you're talking about, that they're taxing you to this day for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you talk about the operations even to this very day, and the tax that they sent in the mail via United States mail, right? With that 1917 war tax, funding our own enslavement that many of these people think ended and think it's a non-issue of the past. It is present. If you don't understand the nature of yourself, right, with the frequencies, you can't fight it, because the concepts is that these tax burdens are to your benefit and are your obligation. None of it is true. And that's a whole venue in itself to talk about. And not unlike the different segments of things that we talked here on the House of Revoking Mind for the last decade, all of those are connected to this. This is a connection to give people a cognizance of how your actual body has been working.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get back to that, Dr. J.
Well,
where you at?
Yeah. Well,
so you're correct. And so one way that the owners of the United States Corporation Company has been maintaining this matrix. So the matrix is actually this social political system that our people think, quote unquote, is their government, not knowing it's a private corporation run from Davos, Switzerland. Decades we've been telling people that, right? So through voluntary participation, because you think it is your benefit, you see?
Mhm.
So when you unconsciously say, I am Black, or I am a US citizen, you are unknowingly affirming a false jurisdiction that never did and does not serve you. So this is back to what we talked about for years, Dr. G. Jurisdiction is everything. So you see the conversion from the unseen world vibration into the physical world of the civil platform, that how dark art is used, meaning that the knowledge is there. The nature of things that function is there. It can be used positively or negatively. They're using it negatively, which is why you're presenting to make people cognizant of the work, and so we can start taking control. And that capacity to of reattaching to nature is sovereignty.
Yeah, I see somebody in the chat. I believe it's Dark Goddess is talking about. I was fascinated. The conversation. There's a conversation going here about pendulums, and you know me. I'm a strong pendulum user. A divin. I love divination.
Part of the culture.
Yes. Pendulum board. You know, divining rides. You know, those are things that our people.
It's part of our culture.
And we have, you know, gotten away from those things. And these were ways in which we could kind of get the head up
and entertaining their matrix.
Right.
Continue.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could use these things. You know, what we were given. And I don't want to offend anybody.
Getting back.
They want to give it. They give us Jesus, and you know, and the fact that, you know, I remember the song "Fix It After a While." There are things that you can know and head off, and you know ahead of time by using, you know, the various, you know, modalities that we
going back to those principles of your ancient mothers and fathers.
Right. You know, and if people get hokey and scared and stuff. I remember the sister that would be here, a sister Elena, helping us at House of Reawakening Minds in the early ages, and she's a psychic, and she's now out in Washington State. But I remember her telling me she worked, I believe it was for 1-800 psychics and whatever, and she was telling me that the majority of the people, for instance, that would call her for advice were like we call it evangelists and prophets and stuff for the church. So they were looking for using these divination practices in secret through somebody else, afraid to touch it, but they wanted to ask for advice for that. And this is stuff that we knew. They
knew. Now let's get back to reality, Dr. J. Remember, and this is where people get confused, because they think that when people have titles, like in mosque, church, synagogue, things like that, that they are dedicated to how they present to the people. What you discover is that whether people use it positively or negative, they know the science that's a source of their power over the people, which means they're cognitively holding certain information back in order to feed a narrative. And it's hard for people to sometimes acknowledge that these people themselves don't hold true to what they're selling to the public, but that's the truth.
And it's a shame, though. It's such a shame that we have, you know, I think it's an affront to our ancestors.
We have to,
you know, that we have sold out.
Accept our own. I think what's difficult, Dr. G, even when you get into the angle of really studying the vibration, for people to admit that that we're naive and that we're not as secure within our thought process as we'd like to think that we are. And the difficulty is now we have to do that self-shadow work to actually accept that, one, our concepts are wrong, that we've been had, and that the people that have been so-called representing us aren't dumb, we've been dumb. And we need to get over ourselves, humble ourselves, start studying. And I appreciate again why you even brought the subject up, because it's necessary, because people need to understand the science of vibration in order to use it.
Well, and to know that the power is within you. That's
always was.
Because you know, because it's always in you. Was. So when you know that, and maybe you don't feel it right this moment, but if you've been beat down and told so much that, you know, you got to find it out there, and you know, but like I think even if they showed us stuff like Star Wars, you remember Luke Skywalker, may the force be with you, in you, whatever. The force is in you. The force is you.
Yes.
You know, and you just you just don't know.
That's why they created the code systems, the phenotype systems, what they would call the race paradigm, so that we would start arguing with ourselves. And if you notice, as you said before, Dr. J, right? This was constructed for what? To attack
The minority
classification, right?
Right.
Blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, and all of these terms apply to us. But you recognize the schism.
But what I hear right there is when they add in so-called poor whites, so it has nothing to do with the color of your skin.
Exactly.
It's the classification.
It's a caste
It's a caste system. Yeah.
It's a caste system.
Yeah, because they'll throw their own.
And yet,
yeah,
all of these people, when you really study the bio, are related. See, that's the point. And this is back to where the people don't recognize that this is an act of war, scientifically approached, using both the caste system, biological warfare, sound, vibration. And this is why even when you get into the documents, as far as what has been exposed, you'll see they're dealing with vibrations, electrical currents, etc. And again, we don't want to, because we'll get into a whole different thing.
I'm wondering what was happening during the so-called period. They call the Tartarian period, which was when there was a lot of there was free energy, and there was the church, so-called church steeples. You find out now were sort of like almost like lightning rods to connect energy. And what were the people? How were the people? The mindset. I guess you got to get rid of people so you can grow up another nation of people who don't know. That's what the reset.
This is what the genocide.
That's what a reset is about. You reset with folk that don't remember or don't know what it was that they had, so that they accept whatever crumbs you throw them, not knowing that they used to have the whole damn cake. Now you send them a crumb, and they're like, oh, "Thank you for the crumb," but you had the cake. You made the cake.
That's an interjection, Dr. J.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get into this, but just I want to interject, give you something to think about for even the next time. This has much to do with what they're doing with the WEF and the secret meetings that they've been having, because the problem that they're having is that the rate of the function of the genocide, which is operative here and around the world, right? They need the workforce that's functioning right now to be accelerated on a lower economic scale, and so they need to get rid of the people here. This is why they opened up the borders. In other words, what I'm saying to you, Dr. G, all of this is connected. But if you don't know the geopolitics, the average person has no comprehension on the jurisdictional problem of the Naturalization Act, Ulysses Grant, and what's going on right now with the what they're calling open borders, right? And as we talked about a couple of years ago, it's very clear what's happening in California, because that's almost like a neon sign of what's taking place, right? Mm-hmm. What's taking place in Philadelphia, Kensington Avenue, etc.
Oh yeah, oh my. Yeah.
What's taking place that hasn't been noticed until lately, because it's been more strict in this area, but you don't see that usually because it wasn't allowed in this area right here. And what's happening in New York is all over, but people need to understand this stuff was planned. It's not circumstantial. How can people counter? You can't counter what you don't understand. And it's back to understanding or knowing self. Right. Back to the issue, Dr. J.
Right. Well, anyway, I think that's why we must begin to detox from identity poisoning. Identity poison. We've been poisoned from labels, from narratives, and from false like I said, false memory implants. Like I said, that's why a reset. That's why we keep hearing this about reset. People are just, they're putting those buzzwords out there because they want folks to talk about what it is they are planning to do and what they've done in the past. Because what they've done, those who don't remember the past are destined to repeat it. And that's what's happening. Although, we got people like you and me who and some of you who have been around more than 50 years. And we've seen some things come back around. I've seen in my 70 years, I've seen things come back around. And I never thought, that, this would happen. And we had a lot of folks that went out early in their incarnation. And so they never saw the bigger. I'm not saying that we've seen the complete picture.
They hadn't had the experience.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, they didn't get to see as much of what we've seen. And now we have something to kind of compare it with and go, okay, stuff has really changed. This is a shift, just the feeling, not just the things that like with the economics and so forth. We can remember, I remember, when bread was like 25, 30 cents a loaf. I mean, so, but some younger people can't eat, what do you mean 25, 30 cents? Yeah. I remember when penny candy, you could get more than a piece of candy for a penny.
Yep.
Get a little bag of candy. For a nickel, you might have had 25 pieces of candy or something in the bag. But I'm just saying things have changed, and those of us who are here, we chose to be here at this time for such a time as this, so that we could be about bringing back to, or at least enlightening the minds of those who didn't know what it used to be. Right? Not saying that what it used to be was all that great, but when you have some perspective, when you can look back and say, look, this is where we've come from, and this is look like where we're heading, unless, and that's what I believe we are. We kind of like those, we need to kind of listen to what's happening. And people say, well, Grand Sheik, he's been saying the same thing for 40, 50 years. Yeah.
It's related.
Because every day, or at least every 1 to 2 or 3 times a week, Grand Sheik, somebody calls here and they want information. They just discovered our channel, or they just realized that they're not Black or Negro or color, and they want, how can I correct my status? I mean, I think I got 1 or 2 calls today even about that. Every day there's somebody waking up to the fact that they don't know what they thought they know.
And you want to know something, Dr. G? Just like, and we've discussed this very often, right? Sometimes even when we're setting up classes, right? And the extensive information that you have in your library. Same thing with myself. And so we have opportunities, if we wanted to just get clicks, to talk a lot of other things. But I think it's obvious to some people who are paying attention why I stay focused on this. Because when they look back, many of the other things that were there to be talking about were distractions, when I knew from day one, this is the goal. This is their goal, and all the other stuff that they're dealing with politically and socially is dead minutia to keep you busy, and it was going to die out to get you off of what they were. This is the plan. This is the plan. They're not moving off of this. This deals with your economics, that same fake bill they sent you, that tax. So the average person thinking in a vacuum think that's current. I don't think current. I already know. When we talked the other day and you told me about it, immediately I ain't even thinking amount. I'm thinking we must make counter move. In other words, if the birthright is not claimed, the birthright is abandoned. This is why even when they do the claims, their judgment will have within its structure abandonment. Now, so the average, if you read this to people who are caught in the matrix, their mind is, oh, this is them, right? No different than people will start talking about not understanding time shift, right? What we talked about. What we're going into now with these things that are going on around the world, they're getting ready to start the Third World War. Third World War was already active in 1969. Half the people that are listening to this show maybe were not even here physically. And in their mind, if they're following the narrative, they're looking at these two wars taking place, and they think this is current events. My mind, I'm thinking 1863, 1913, 1917, together. So their problem that they have with people who are really conscious is that we don't fall for the matrix. We don't let the things that take place in between to make us forget that this is the agenda, no matter what takes place in between. Things come and go. That Model T Ford became a Crown Vic, became a Taurus, and became the same Ford that you got right now with the same operatives in the back. And they have meetings to regulate your life and planning on draining your resources and your energy. They are vampires. And all they do is distract us with other dynamics. So even what's going on, and you notice how it goes into a loop, Dr. J.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening with the music industry, and you see how it's redundant, and people have been distracted with that for the last couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why does it keep on going on? Because they're resetting in the background and they're genociding around the planet while we're distracted with these things. Not that they're not important, but you have a heavy attack on humanity at large while we're looking at that. Same thing. That's why I've been redundant, Dr. G.
Well, you have to.
Because I know and understand the matrix.
Yeah.
You know, this is why when you people try to encourage you to keep playing the game like they're playing, and when you don't, they think that you're off, or they think that you don't get what's up because you're not with the party, everybody partying, and you're standing in the corner watching these vampires. Come on, you got to party with us. Oh, that was then. You know, the Third World War, it's possible to come, and you already know that half these people dancing in this game, creating all this loosh, and being drained, including their offspring. And why does they keep talking about this all these years? Because their position has not changed. They're just distracting you by controlling the narrative. This is the function, and it's ongoing. And while we're partying, and partying don't mean that we're, partying, while we're distracted with them controlling the narrative, this is what their agenda is, and they're on it. Anyway, let's get back to your position.
Anyway, as I said, it's not just about rejecting labels. It's about reclaiming your status. It's when you declare your Moorish nationality, it's more than paperwork. It's cosmic frequency, and it's a cosmic frequency shift, to be exact.
Yes.
And you're telling the universe, I remember, I return, I reclaim.
Return to honor.
Yeah. There's power. There's power in your proclamation. I remember when I first stepped out of the religious structure, I felt the vibrational shift immediately.
Yeah, respectfully, the dogma structure that has contaminated religion. So let's not dismiss religion.
Okay.
Let's look, just like we don't dismiss gold and silver coin, which is money. We dismiss the fiat misrepresented as money. And it's back to how the same way they've collaged the living sentient woman and man with the Sister QV trust is the same way that they've collaged their private commercial paper with the gold and silver coin, Article 1, Section 10, to satisfy all debts, which is the money. The same way that they've used the bondage of the marriage certificates and the birth certificate sent to Seed and Company at New York traded internationally bondage with the physical chain bond that the people thought was ended in 1865 with the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands that is tagged commonly now as the Freedmen's Bureau. And also why the people never got 40 acres and a mule. And they still ain't dawned on them yet that they've been played on a false narrative to keep you busy looking over there while they were draining your energy. Because remember, life is vibration.
When I did make that shift from the dogma system, it was not just it wasn't not just personal. It was ancestral. It was something in my DNA and something in the ancestral blood that said, welcome back. And the first people that came, it's interesting, the first people that rallied around me, though, were those who really, they believed in practice Yoruba and so forth like that. So kind of, that was my first, the first folks that kind of came to, hey, we're here for you. When the church folk all left, then that was it. But when you declare your nationality, you're not just making a legal correction. You're aligning your frequency. We're talking about frequency with the divine law of the cosmos.
The honor of your mothers and fathers.
Yeah, you're restoring the integrity of your DNA memory, as a matter of fact, and you're unlocking records. The Akashic realm that has been deliberately suppressed, have been erased, have been mislabeled by colonizers and priests of the false matrix. And it's why they fight us so hard. It's why they fight us so hard, because once we rise and remember, game is actually over.
Yeah. Yeah. So indeed, and let me add this too, Dr. J. The law, and we're talking about divine law, true law, right? Or what's called positive law,
right?
Or what they call supreme law, all that's relative, right? Is in alignment with the cosmos. This is why, loosely they will say, even in the organic proclamation, they'll say nature's law and nature's God. That because the foundation of the principles under that support the Constitution is actually coming from a body of men and women who actually drafted that off the nature of the law of the ancient ones.
Which would that be, opposite of when they say what they do is ecclesiastical from a standpoint of man
and they
created.
loosely refer to this as common law.
Right, because ecclesiastically, that's what they created. Right? And then when you talk about the common law.
When they talk about the ecclesiastic, they're really referring to the popes of Rome.
Right,
rather than say the Pope's law, they'll say ecclesiastic.
Yeah.
So now they're talking about the Cretans that took over the church and are presenting the church, but are not the church.
Okay.
And this is kind of difficult unless people really study the history. No different than we know is commonly presented to the masses, right? Of a lot of people using Jesus as a front, but in fact and in real practice have never been conjoined with that Moabite philosophy. Because remember, Jesus was Moabite.
But that was never taught.
Yes, it was.
No. What I'm saying, I'm talking about modern day.
Yeah,
it's
but
not more modern day.
But they do. But
it's not. Christianity is given a forefront to everything else, and everything else was like allegedly pagan in nature.
Respectfully, because even that's misrepresented. Because all pagan means is people.
I know what it means, but I'm talking about what pagan has been.
What they've done.
As.
This is now, and I'm qualifying again. I'm not disagreeing with.
No. I'm just saying I do know what it really is. But
this is what they've done.
Right.
They preserve it in philosophical circles, or what they call secret societies, as both a point of guide and a point of reference to maintain the path. The path can be upper or lower, meaning that people who use dark spirit science are aware of the neutrality of the law in its nature. They preserve it in order to control. So their choice of the dark is a choice. And this is where I think a lot of times the general public think that people who are operating darkly is because that's quote unquote their belief, and they don't, and we need to make them or share with them the light. They know the light better than you do.
Yeah, they know the light.
This
Father Hannibal always talk about the right hand path, the left hand path when he would be, here instructing. So that's what
higher self, lower self.
Yeah, you have it, and it's a thin line.
Yeah, but the deal of it is, what I'm only saying that because what I recognize is that a lot of times people assume that people that practice dark arts are not aware of the
light,
the good of the light.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's their choice, and it's symbolized in the Tanakh, the Bible, etc., when it says that Satan was once a beautiful angel with God.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, so if he takes the dark side, that's a conscious act.
Right.
But that means the capacity of the very same good that the Most High represents. So what those are lessons for us to study. And I think a lot of times when people look at that, they're looking at the good and evil as being fixed positions,
separate, yeah.
When it's not. It's a reflection. So therefore, the darkness is a reflection of light, but not the light. The issue of comprehending a knowledge of the vibration is so that you can make the discernment. This is what. So when you look at the story of Yeshua, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Yeshua represents to the people is giving us knowledge of discernment, and by letting us know of the higher self and the lower self, and that by intent or will, whosoever will, let him come to the light side. But if you don't understand this false matrix, you be walking into the dark for lack of knowledge. So now he shares the knowledge of the ancient Moabite, because remember his grandmother Ruth is a Moabitess. So his grandmother's a Moor, so he's a Moor. He has hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, and people need to look at the book according to the culture. And if they understand, he's teaching the people how to walk or how to live the vibration while Rome is ruling, contaminated everything. And while the priesthood has been compromised, he's making you aware of it, that they're saying, Lord, 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 but their heart, their intent, their heart vibration is not conjoined,
right?
Which means they're in the lower character. And so people need to even understand the story, because the story is really even here. Mm-hmm. But if one doesn't know it, they see this as a separate subject matter, because it's not going through what we would call religious jargon. Mm-hmm. But you're simply talking about the science, but you're also revealing how it's being used darkly. So if people understand what the priesthood are doing to the negative, you can cognitively take control of your life. What is that called in the civil realm? That's called reclaiming your birthright, and it's also calling taking on your sovereignty. That's what that really means. That's why many people get offended as soon as you say the word sovereignty, because that counters the dark arts. So people think it's something that's given or politically given, when it's actually the natural right of self. Divinely, has nothing to do with. This is why when people begin to really understand it, or they understand government structure, that government has no sovereignty to give. Government has no rights to give. The right is already with you. The force is already with you. The psychosis is when you think it belongs to them and that it is gifted from them conditionally to you for a fee, a tax to Rome. Here, let me take you up here. All of this is yours if you will bow down. And this is what people have done and lost their birthright and starting believing that they have no capacity to reclaim it. What did Raleigh do? Came back with your knowledge of the nationality and birthright, because the nationality, nativity ties you back to the proper matrix, which is your womb of you. That's where nativity comes from the womb. So what does the word matrix mean? The matrix means womb. So who's your mother? This is why all ancient governments in their character are matriarchs or matriarchies. And then you see the conflict that comes in with the fall or the corruption of the matriarchy. And from that draws the patriarchy, where her sons are given a crown to rule. But the wake up or the restoration of proper earth vibration is the rise of the matriarchy. And when you really understand the metaphysicality of the story, now you understand where you see on the questionnaire where Raleigh's got the woman in his hand, she's unconscious, 9 drops of water coming from her body, and he's standing on a rock. That's telling you what's coming. And it also has what? Humanity written on the womb. See, so now people know what they're looking at, right? Political scientists, they know what they're looking at. Some people who don't understand it start getting into this worshipful mentality, which is the wrong concept. But that has to be worked out. But anyway, let's get back to the point, Dr. T. So every nation, so indeed, you know, we add this, the law, the true law. So we're not being necessarily poetic. So when we talk about the zodiac constitution, we're being precise. So that's when you're getting scientific. And then you take that knowledge and then you adjust it to how does it function in the civil realm. This is why when you go to any of those, anywhere around the world where they have them lodges, they'll have the zodiac in the entry of the doorway, always, because that's the law, right? So that's the cosmos, law of the cosmos, you see? So in its divine form, it is mathematics in motion. It's harmonic structure. It's cosmological order made manifest. So every nation that lasted for any what you call expanded period of time understood that governance was not just about rules. It was about resonance, vibration, resonance. The fake laws are what we call color law, which we see today, codes, statutes, acts, etc. Those are color or colorable, and they initiate law, but carry no true force of right or force of justice unless you consent to them. But it's never justice. That means you're consenting to the lower vibration. So, and what happens when you stop consenting? When you know that your status is correct or is spiritually within yourself, not, and you act it out in the physical realm, you begin to operate on a different frequency. And then what does it? It means that those who relate to you are now faced with a different frequency. And so the system doesn't recognize you as property anymore. Why? Because it needs that low vibration to make claim on you, right? So it begins to treat you like they're like the air you've always been when you take the right stand.
You know, well, let me tell you something. When your vibration changes, so does your reality, and yes. That's it. People, like you said, they treat you like the air.
It's like taking control, right?
People treat you differently. I mean, I've heard from folks that have gone through processes that now, you know, they get stopped and they run a check and they say, "Have a nice day," and they maybe they have no, they may have their own personal tags or whatever they did, whatever they're not bothered or they're not you know, given the same kind of response. It's like I said earlier, it has nothing really to do at the core of it, has nothing to do with the color of your skin, because it has to do with the status
or not of law,
right, of law and the jurisdictional position that you are in. Because folks, you know, they'll treat when you learn what it is that folks like, Trump and all, why does, can he have a country club and not have to pay taxes and different things. When you learn the various things that are to be learned, then it's access, if you will, into the club, so to speak. But it's just into, because it's their club, because they've set these rules outside of the rules of nature and of the common law. But people treat you differently. Your intuition sharpens and synchronicities increase. I've been talking about it. I had last week at our class, there was a young man that sat in the back. We went late, but I left before you went. 4 o'clock in the morning. There's a young man sitting in the back, and he didn't really look familiar to me until he got ready to leave, and he came over to me. And he came over to me and he hugged me, and I said, how are you doing? And he said, you don't remember me? I said, you kind of look familiar. And he told me who he was, and I almost fell back down in his seat. Here's the reason. We're talking about synchronicities. Earlier that day, I was driving down a street that we come from Home Depot, as a matter of fact. And I remembered this young man and his grandmother, who I used to work with 30 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. I thought about him and I thought about her. About 10, 12 years ago, he used to come to the House of Reawakening Minds, 10 years ago or so. And he was, I hadn't seen this young man in like 10 years, but I thought about him earlier in the day. He shows up at the House of Reawakening Minds the same day. With, like I said, I haven't seen him for at least 10 years or more. And he said to me, I said, I didn't want to say it was you because I realized I just thought about you today. But things like that. And it was just like that. And he said, you know what? He said, what's funny about it? He said, I picked up an ink pen from a young lady that used to come to say, we used to do Reiki circles, prayer Reiki circles. We do Reiki, and I would do, I would be able to tap into what was, we would do past life stuff and all that. And he said, I picked up an ink pen today, he said, from one of the young ladies that used to come there. And for some reason, he said, I didn't even know you were still having stuff here. And then he saw me make a post. And so he showed up. But here we go. Synchronicity, stuff like that happens when your vibration changes and your ancestral guidance becomes clearer, and your immune system, things have changed. I mean, I know with me, a lot of things are changing with me because you can look at me. I mean, so you look at me about 6 months ago. The energy, the weight, and all that. It's a vibrational shift. It's not just you don't eat much or you're doing this versus that. It has to be a part of your vibrational DNA, so to speak, in order to effect changes. And so, it's not just a physical. It's physiological. It's neurological. You're thinking different. It's economic. It changes the way you think about finances and how to attract or how to use what you have. It is a metaphysical law expressed through physical experience.
Now you're looking at how governments are structured and why, when they step off constitutional principle, they start collapsing. Because the constitutional principle is based on what? Divine law. But what they have done is that they have cognitively stepped off and then encouraged the people to step off, then feed on the people, because the people unknowingly are lawless or unconstitutional. And they use that as a justification. This is why they use deception. And this is why they created what you call colored language and get the people to agree to it deceptively to justify their corruption. However, nature does not tolerate that corruption, even though it's veiled. And so while they're saying, when I say at large, people are saying, Lord, 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 they forget that nature does not recognize person or station. And that's again, when you really understand the nature of vibration, you understand how is it that the planetary structure, even though you have clashes here and there, how you have them coming back into order. That's coming back into orbit. And so the deal is they know that when they step out, it can only last but so long, because nature herself will do what? Right the wrong. Therefore, justice is structured in the universe. And even when you have an understanding of this, you can see how things come about as they are. So this is why the owners of the corporation buried our status under the fictitious black codes. They need to get us to agree to be it. And this is why even in the War Department, they set up the Bureau of Indian Affairs to get us to agree to that. And they, not knowing that it created jurisdictions that they had claim on, because they created those platforms. But remember, we didn't have to be there, because remember, when we step off the honor of our mothers and fathers, that made us like abandoned. But politically, we were held as what is called civiliter mortuus, which means dead in the view of the law, not physically dead, but politically and dead in the view of the law. And so when you understand, this is back to when you mentioned how it's important it is for people to really look at what nationalization actually is. And one of the problems that you see taking place right now, they're needing to enforce those principles dealing with the immigration problem, but they can't without exposing themselves. That's another thing. So the owners of the corporation renamed us, and this is where you have your classifications, as you can see here. That's what those classifications are. You see, none of them are nationalities. You notice? You see? So, so they reclassified us, i.e., the people of land, and used religious dogma and colonial politics to keep us mentally, socially, economically, politically enslaved. And now when you declare your nationality and understand what it really means and what it's connected to, you do more than just correct your status on paper. You activate a frequency that cannot be controlled by the systems of Rome or by their corporate subdivisional states, etc. And so the Moors, being the descendants of those ancient Moabites, are the oldest continuous nation on earth. And so the Moorish nation is not a club, and it's not a religion. Moors are a people with a flag that's in the law of Ixilum, right? A constitution. That's a principle of order rooted in divine law, nature's law, and nature's God. A history, a chronology, a divine mandate to restore balance to the earth. And it starts with remembering, with claiming, proclaiming, and with declaring, and with being. Basically and subtly, I am that I am.
Yeah.
You,
yeah.
Dr.
Yeah. So those of you listening tonight, somebody put in there that they've been listening to Severe Bay. Not me. This is our divine message. Thank you very much. But anyway, for those of you listening tonight who've been wondering, do I really need to declare? Can I just be spiritual? Let's say this. Your spirit is infinite. So yes, you can be spiritual, but your body is still being taxed. Your labor is still being extracted. Your status will still be misrepresented.
What is it really?
It's still going to be misrepresented in the matrix.
This is what happens.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
So let me finish. You need both.
Yeah.
Spiritual sovereignty and lawful standing.
But this is what it means. Let's make it very clear. Just like when you brought up the issue, right? Spiritually is when it's in you and you proclaim, right? And you get a comprehension, an overstanding, an understanding, and an understanding, and a cognitive capacity to regurgitate it. It is given that way so that you can convert it or transfer it in responsibility to the physical plane. So the body is an organ of the spirit. It's the vehicle. And so when you're here to learn you have an obligation and a responsibility to honor that body. This is why in the principle of the organic it says honor your mothers and your fathers, because all inheritances come through there. And that means one must speak up. So the vibration of the voice, you do not allow others to proclaim or to represent you, but you present yourself to claim the estate. You're on the floor, Doctor.
Yeah, but that's what we're teaching. That's what we're activating. That's why we are here. That's exactly why we're here, you know? So, you know, it's important that we keep the focus in front of us as to why, you know, we need this and paperwork. You know, it's like that. You know, it's like that. You got to have your spirit. Yeah.
But this is the reason why it works for some and don't work for others.
Yeah, one without
like some, like if you ever notice, if you get a little history, Dr. G, traveling and you're dealing with different people, some people can walk into those trading human trafficking venues and the auctioneer of the corporate state acting as judge will often remove them out, and then others they act like it's not even there, and it's very often and many times is what that energy, the aura that they have, they're not attached to the presentment. And this is the other important thing, and this happens often. When they start talking, their language doesn't match the nature of the affidavit. And this is where people come for the benefit, and they'll do the proclamation for the benefit, but it's not in the heart.
Yeah.
And their language will not knowing that that's a high priest. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. Those people that call magistrates are high priests.
I just saw a video this week, one of those reaction videos, and it was a modern European in court, at court, and everything that we've been taught that we're supposed to say when you stand on your square. This modern European stood down this magistrate, and it was a female, and she threatened that if he did not shut up, she was going to do. She threatened everything. He stood his ground. He walked. She said, "Excuse me," and got up from the bench to walk out for something. She said, "Oh, he done." She said, He said, "She's abandoned the whatever."
Abandoned.
He said, "Come on, everybody, let's go," and took him and all his people, and they walked out of that and left.
Now it's because he understands Constitution principles.
He when I say this modern European stood on his square, everybody needs to probably look at it. I need to find that video and post it.
What does he know? What now? Interjection. What do you think that he knew, that he was demonstrating that he knew? He knew this, that one, Clearfield Doctrine, that she operates for the private foreign for-profit human trafficking corporation, run from Davos, Switzerland, and that venue is run from Fleet Street, England, Circle Church and Chancery. Two, that the answer for the record is to that clerk and not that magistrate. And what he's speaking to the law. Now, if she abridged him, she kind of sensed from how he was talking that now he has claim on her bond, on her equity bond. But what they know most of the time is most people will not stand for their rights. Why is that rare? Because people have been so mentally broken that they don't know they have rights. They think the Bar Association gives them rights. They think that the corporate auctioneer is an Article 3 judge. They are not. They're acting magistrates under corporate seal and are in fact foreigners unregistered. That's why they don't talk Constitution, because they're not standing on Constitution. So if he's standing on constitutional principles and she's not, she's walking into a hole. So when she saw that he was not going to bow, she got up It's called dethroning.
What?
In other words, he debenched her.
You did.
Now,
I'm gonna find that, and I'm gonna.
no, but I'm just saying what I'm saying just for the moment for the people.
We're
When
gonna
you
post it on our website.
now, people need to observe that and understand what he actually just did. Some people who don't understand think, oh, he's being disrespectful. No, she was being disrespectful, and he brought her to task because he held her to obligation, even though he knew that she was colored. That's what was actually taking place. Yield the floor.
No, well, yeah, that's you know, we can go on. We can go on.
Hmm?
We can go on.
Oh,
Yeah.
so now and see how everything that when you start analyzing things, the vibration of this stuff, even as you brought the, you can see how any little part of these things that you presented, Dr. G, is a whole nother
Thing.
expansion. But what does it do? It brings comprehension of the broad nature of what nationalization actually is. And what I know that you've learned over the years, I've learned over the years, most people's concept of nationalization is very limited until you actually begin to study it. It is both spiritual and civic, both. And when you and you bringing it out even in your conversation, what did Raleigh say? Divine and, so that means plus, national movement. He didn't say club.
Church.
He didn't say temple.
Yeah.
He didn't say the church. He didn't say the synagogue. He said movement. Movement. So that means that's an action, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he says, one of the other things that he said, I want active Moors, not passive Moors. Right? So what does that mean? If you don't use the knowledge, leave it alone. Give it back. Why? Because you're become an enemy to your own cause. Why? Because if you don't act on what you know, there's no need to have it. If you're in the desert and someone brings you a cup of water and you start worshiping the cup of water and the person next to you drinks the cup of water, that person makes it out the desert. You don't. That's right. But you both were given water. And I think this is how people need to begin to look at the scriptures, to be used, not to be worshipped. And most people don't get past that misunderstanding. That's where you see a lot of what you call schism comes in with people who don't rise to that understanding, that comprehension, that understanding that is there for to bring life, to bring knowledge. And it's the lack of knowledge that actually brings the destruction. And even though it's all said there, people still keep missing the lessons. You know, so they never attach to that vibration and they remain dead. And so they're empty shells and empty vessels in empty houses. Big, glorious, beautiful buildings cost a lot of fiat, cost a lot of lives, a lot of sacrifice, and produce absolutely nothing because the vibration is not there. Anyway, back to you, Dr. G.
I think I've.
Well, anyway, so let's deal with the acronic forces, as we refer to them.
We call them the archons, though.
Yeah.
They're those negative, those energies out there.
Yeah, well, they call it archons.
The archons.
Archonic forces, right?
Yeah.
And they will call it negative. But you got to kind of.
But they're real. That's the part, though. Even though you don't see everything, doesn't mean it's not operating in its own realm now, and affecting this one.
Now we're getting into other parts of human history, right? Of the Great Seal.
Yeah.
So we already know about the scientific laboratories in Mexico.
Yeah.
49,000. We know about that. And what many people don't know is that the intercommunication with outsiders and people here is not new. That's also going to be part of disclosure. to understand what's going on here. Then you have positive and negative, because it's not only one, what you might call people or species. And also some of them have been warring while we've been here halfway asleep at Midgard, thinking that this is the only place.
Or that we're the only ones.
Yeah, that type of thing. And so they also been hiding that. And then the other deal is you have a little bit of mixture that was done. That has created some of the dynamics that we're actually dealing with. You know, so those are as part of your Adeptus lessons, right? So the archonic forces that you think are your thoughts are not necessarily your own. And so many of them have been seeded, have been planted through what they call suggestion science. And what is done basically to humanity that they can relate to if they want to do a little bit of research. It's called MK Ultra. That's one of them. And then it'll, how to say, be more down to earth for you to understand why the majority of the so-called governments are so extremely evil, and people don't get it and can't wrap their heads around it, that the people they called their government are actually ruled with and among demons. Right. That's another way to look at your archonic forces.
Yeah, because they look human, but they're soulless, you know.
And so different people express it different ways, whether they're saying shapeshifters and other different terms they've used. But while that's not the conversation, so that you can look at whether these different pieces of information have their origin for people who have a little bit of comprehension of what's really been going on in the shadows a little bit. So these are unseen intelligence, archons, wichikos, shadow parasites that feed off your confusion. This is why the persons operating in government work so hard to control the narrative. It's another, again, reason why, Dr. G, I've been redundant, because I already know most of the stuff in between is distraction. This is archon. This is their own communication among themselves to keep them on point. This is why they have meetings like Bilderbergers and WEF, and it's never by public, though funded by the expense of the public. And most people wouldn't look at this and say archon, would they?
No.
Oh, well. Now you understand why certain things over the decades, I stay redundant. What it really means is, while they've been distracting here and distracting there, even if it's decades, I'm still looking up there. It's not that I ignore those things. And every once in a while I get drawn too. All of us do. But guess what I don't do? I don't get off the track. Because I know that you're dealing with demons. Then a part of disclosure also too is you're going to start seeing the sacrifices that were made along the way, that people that fell for the game and got distracted. And what do after they use them up? They sacrifice them. And though the pattern is there, people ain't caught on yet. It's not that people don't see it. It's not that people don't talk about it. No different than certain things take place right now, how certain things that you mentioned earlier went on for 14 years and the people keep on feeding into it now. They're complaining when the evidence was there from day one.
Yeah.
Anyway, shout out to Sister Freedom. You know, because you haven't been given credit for a lot of things that you've done to try to help, even though it was misused and you were misused. We appreciate you and we appreciate your intent. However, you're getting the work done because you're teaching the people. Ain't she?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you.
Yes, she did. Yep. So,
But it shows you that anybody that had any good intention could have done the same thing. Didn't need all that finance, did they?
no.
Oh, well. So that tells you everything, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but at the same time, we're not feeding into that negative. We're dealing with the positive. So anyway, so those parasites, you must be cognizant of them and the spiritual interference that they create. And they ride the waves of fear. They whisper doubt, install delay, and convince you, possibly if you're not cognizant, question your power just when you're on the brink of awakening. And they're not myths, they're real. And they amplify their influence through the very devices you think that are making your life easier.
Phones, social media.
They use digital sound frequencies, electromagnetic fields, AI suggestion algorithms, and even dream space technology to disrupt your natural rhythm. And that's why so many people feel like they're losing their grip, not because they're broken, but because they're under attack, psychic attack.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. J.
Yeah. So if we're going to talk about outside forces, then we've got to talk about CERN, which we have it in the title of this particular thing, Discerning. CERN. I had a sister on about 2 years ago that worked on the I think it was Sister Audrey, if I'm not mistaken, Audrey Rumbers, who worked on the CERN project. Let me make sure I got that right. Was that her? I think it was. Anyway, she was a part of that through one of the because they had apparently a lot of different colleges and so forth that were doing pieces. Everything wasn't done right there in Switzerland.
It was departmentalized.
It was, and you know what they do is they make sure that they spread things out so nobody knows it all.
It's called departmentalization.
Yeah.
That one party doesn't know what the other party is doing, but those who are controlling the operations bring them together like a puzzle. And this way they protect, or how they maintain secrecy, and called distraction. Right.
But they told us, that it was a science project to discover the God particle. But what they were really doing is what they were trying to do is to pierce through dimensional boundaries. That's what they were doing. They're trying to open up portals. CERN it's not just a collider. It's a key. We saw Stargate SG-1 and all that stuff, a tool for opening portals and tearing veils. And that's what's happening. And that's why I believe we're seeing so many, you'll see the little videos where people are seeing these glitches and these weird, like sort of a milky like figures, like the dimensional, whatever. They have, CERN has actually pierced through the veil. It's like I said, has opened up portals and is showing things. And speaking of portals and stargates, I did some study recently where I learned that a lot of the war in the Middle East wasn't so much for the reasons or the causes that was given to us, the public, as much as it was to get to the portals and to get. They knew things were going to come through. And it was things that they were trying to take control of, so that when these things come through, that they had the upper hand. So we need to know that. So if you ever wonder why time feels distorted, why your memories shift, and why that Mandela effect, I talked about it on my Facebook the other day. I was like, I thought it was all these years. So I was like 70 years young before I found out it was Sherbet instead of Sherbert.
And it's actually Sherbet.
I didn't know.
But
we always
maybe because the T is not really pronounced, because we say sherbet.
Who out there besides me called it sherbet? Come on, like put a one in the comment if you call it sherbet. Come on now, help me out. But anyway, turns out that it's sherbet, and I thought they're wrong, so I went to the supermarket and took a picture of of a container of sherbet. Sherbet. It is definitely, they took away, they used to have an R. In the other timeline, there was an R, y'all. I know there was sorbet, but we always called it sherbet. One, what? Look, come on, ones. I know you out there. Come on, it's 756. I should see 750. Well, depending on when you were born, it should be a lot of ones in there. Sherbet. Yep, sherbet. We called it sherbet. Never knew nothing about no sherbet. But in this timeline now, the R is gone. Like I said, I know about sorbet, whatever. But that's the timelines blending of dimensional manipulation, and they're collapsing reality. What they say is that they're collapsing Grand Sheik reality fields and calling it progress.
Yeah,
but
now remember, but let's look at this reality too.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets kind of tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember,
okay, Robert Johnson.
The reality concepts that we've had for these for quite a couple of centuries are artificial.
Yeah.
But they can't live within the energy dispensations of both Uranus, Saturn, and the Aquarian lights. So they're collapsing anyway. And this has much to do with where people are confused when they're not really aware of the culture, the cosmoculture. Now, the cosmoculture is really the foundation of religion. So this is why, like when you see in all the ancient religions where star and the crescent have their point of symbolic reference, because you're dealing with cosmo. Now, the language of cosmo is astrology, right? Mm-hmm. And astronomy. So now you're dealing with the geo, and then you're dealing with what they would refer to as a vibrational spirits. And that's the foundation of religion, you see. But they've gotten away from that, and that's where the dogma is that has been used to put humanity to sleep. So absolutely, yeah, that's why they have introduced transhumanism, and this is where you have what you would call the AI operation.
But you know what I wanted to say though before you get there is that what they're doing is not just affecting physics, it's affecting consciousness.
Yes.
And especially those of us whose DNA is directly tied to Earth's original frequency, the Moorish, indigenous, Aboriginal people that we are, because we are the stewards of this realm. Yeah. We may not remember that, but we are the stewards of this realm. We have the
responsibility of maintaining honorable stewardship.
Right.
Because now, when you go into the history of the ancient Moabites, you find out that falling away from that's why the matriarchy fell. So now you get into the real history. And this is the reason. Now, in order to hide that, or how they tell it allegorical, from an allegorical point of view, mm-hmm. they'll talk about the tree of life and Eve,
right,
falling for the snake. All right, so that's.
Ooh, let's go. We're gonna do some extra time, y'all, because you just opened up something.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the snake and I just
reptiles.
Just saw something, y'all. I just saw it, but it was fascinating how the original our people talked about and all over the planet talk about the serpent people.
Yeah. The
serpent people. So with the so-called, we talk about Inky and Enlil, but it's possible that Inky was Enlil, they were serpent. They had the bodies, the portion of bodies of like serpent sort of and human, because we are a mixture, if you will, of them and whatever.
Sometimes they talk about the reptile brain.
Right, but so we have they say their first brain is that reptilian brain, but the thing, what it was that Eve had relations that said, or in a sense, or was connected to, if you will, the serpent.
Now you're getting into the truth of the hybrid, but remember the story is a synopsis of an actual reality.
Well, they say that Cain was actually the son or the offspring of Eve and the serpent, not Eve and Adams, if you will. Because when I looked into this, it made so much sense, because all over the planet, all of the places that were visited, all the names that they gave for these beings that came from the heavens to earth to teach them, all tie into the word serpent.
Yes. Now,
All of them tied to
and this is
serpent.
why you even
Catch the
see
flying
now when
serpents
you,
and all
now
of it. Yeah.
mainly in the land of mixing, what you call Mexico,
Okay.
in the Yucatan. Then when you look at the serpents design on some of the kuntas or the pyramids,
Mhm.
and how they're lined up with transit of the sun, and also within their placement on ley lines at certain how many cycles of the sun, then you will also see Sirius. You know, and then when you start doing the ley line measurements, you find that this is repeated in different areas on the planet, not just in Mexico.
Well, even the serpent was very prominent, and now you see it in a lot of things. I mean,
But it's not altogether always negative the way it's presented.
No, no. Even if you will, the caduceus, if you look, which is the symbol for healing, has the serpent coiled around,
the spine.
Yeah,
the spine.
So the serpent was so prominent, very prominent, and may have been, we think maybe, we see some pictures and some people make things and they'll say, oh, Inky, have Inky looking like a melanated man, but more than likely, Inky was a serpent being. They were it was a serpent race that came down. Even the Dogon talk about them. Even the Hopi Indians and the berries all over the planet.
All over the planet. Same
they talk
story,
about, they have the same description
same story
of this. Yeah. So yeah, I just thought I would, maybe think.
The point that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is when they look at the metaphorical story in the Bible, Septuaginta, Tanakh, that's what it's telling you. But by people not knowing the ancient culture, they'll take it literal, and though it's not altogether like that, if you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's why in all the secret societies, they will remind the readers that they're allegorical and metaphorical, because they're telling you pieces of it are literal, but it's only a story synopsis actually of the human experience or walk of life on the planet.
I did something on my page the other day, and I said history is what they want us to remember. Legends is what they went too far with, but myths is what they want us to forget, because that when we talk about truth, most of the things that are myths are really truth. And then his story, and I said we were told not to tell stories, if you will, and his story is the biggest one we've been dealing with most of our existence, because they create those things that they want us to believe, which they say be lies.
Now the difficulty that is going on now, even with some of them releasing some of the truth, is because of the energy. Because remember, the ruler of Aquarius, is Uranus, all right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you have your transit, Saturn comes in and rules a while. So you have co-rulership of Uranus and Saturn. And so that brings kind of like justice, in a sense, or conclusion. And so they also know that the hybrid body can't survive in that energy. When you understand that, you understand why they keep trying to block out the sun. You need to know motive. Not that they're being mean, they're trying to survive. So that means also that the paradigms that they created, this pseudo reality that they have controlled, is by the very nature of the cosmos collapsing. And even though it hasn't served us necessarily, the Aboriginal people, understand their power over us is rooted in the institutions too, meaning that controlling the mind, we got to believe in what the credit system, the banking system, right? Their concept of what church is, their concept of what religion is, their concept of what money is, and all of it is out of their control because the nature of the cosmos, it's dissolving. Now I'm thinking now, so That's probably the motive.
CERN. Mhm.
And so they got to keep the sun hidden so that they can survive while they're trying to work this thing out. Because remember, they took over our home and they got comfortable. And after generations, the hybrid kind of lost concept that the sun don't support them
Did they really?
long term.
Did they really? Let's think about it for a minute. I'm just being the advocate.
Yeah, just look at this.
When you said that they took over a home as from
No, it's just called world conquest. That the whole concept of quote unquote, what is the concept of unum sanctum and Romanus Pontifex?
But I'm not.
No, I'm talking about this one I'm making relationship to. The hybrid is that being that the people today call the result of the fall of the ancient Moabite woman and them trying to save what was good on the planet, which brought about what today the masses think came out of a cave, which it didn't, which is the hybrid European that the people commonly call Caucasus. Now,
that's not the download that I got. That's why.
No, but I'm just telling you what the history. I'm relating to history, written history.
Yeah.
That's in the Library of Congress.
Yeah,
right.
History. It's history
of what we're dealing with now, not opinion. I'm just now. You can take it one way or another. I'm just telling you what's written.
Yeah.
Now, so now with Rome, this is why Rome is the symbol. It symbolized as the enemy of Jesus. Because Jesus is symbolizes the bloodline of the ancient Moabite Canaanites, which is the founding of civilization itself on earth. So he come among his own to bring them to a consciousness, because we've fallen under the spell or under the control of the dark forces of Rome, i.e. And so he symbolizes the restoration of the lost estate, and for generations it must take place. This has to do with the root of their hatred of him, even why they lynched him, and why the lynching has been used over centuries ritually by them against woolly-headed aboriginals. And of course, the code comes in with that love-hate relationship that people call racism, but it ain't exactly like they actually think it is. I just want to interject that so that people can look at the politics. Now, so the same body of people who are stealing or taking over the earth, and this is where John 8:44 comes in, right? So they're claiming to be somebody that they're not, right? And trying to claim the estate, which is both, because remember, the state is not just the land, rights, hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal. I'm looking at that as I'm speaking, how it's there if you don't know what you're looking at, but it's not what people think it is. And so that's all I'm saying, but it's there.
Okay.
Now, but it's code.
Okay. That's not what I've got.
Yeah.
That's not the download. I'm just trying to say that I got with
Now,
you talk about what's going back to the hybrid. We talked about the hybrid, but from a standpoint of who we are and who was created, we are star beings. We are part of a race of we are a hybrid creation. We are a hybrid creation. The original Aboriginal man woman was actually a hybrid in themselves,
and then we create our own hybrid.
That's the point I'm trying.
That's it.
That's the point I wanted to make. So they're not the only hybrids. We too are hybrids. We too were something else, and they came here and mixed their stuff with our something else, and then created a third thing.
Now,
right?
What you look at, that's what I was saying to you. If people really understand a little bit of what they would call the hidden history and why they spend so much time burning books and hiding information, and whenever anything that was looked into it anthropologically, right, they keep on finding us.
Right, because
And
we
then-
were the
and
first.
the
We were
serpent,
first. We were
and-
the first. Yeah.
Symbols of the serpents, whether you're, no matter what part of the earth you're in.
Right.
And this is what, from a social political engineering and control perspective, why they're so protective of the Grand Canyon. Because if the people even understood or saw some of what's there, it kills the whole reconstructed matrix narrative of what we think history was or is.
Mhm.
It all falls apart. Problem that they're having right now is that while these things mattered kind of in the Piscean energy, in the Aquarian energy, cosmologically, it doesn't matter because it's dissolving. And so they're trying to, and this is back to, I'm thinking while I'm talking, motive of CERN and the dimensional fabric, and why, and then look at this too. Look at how CERN actually spans a very large territory. It's not small by any means. It actually spans into different national territories, actually. Now, look at this. You can't come up with that just because you had an idea and make that investment and actually build that unless you had scientific and historical knowledge that's ancient and was already grounded to some degree for you to even come up with that, the collider.
I think that it goes back to those ancient
Yes, it does.
progenitors, if you will, and the technology that
Yes,
they
it
brought
does.
along with them. And then when you talk about, you can't, like CERN being so global, to think in terms of Antarctica being also a place where it seems like every country has signed a treaty not to do or not to allow folks to be able to go there, because
Mhm.
whatever's there has a universal would have a universal impact. So whatever they're protecting
Relationship.
there is something global, as opposed to just a regional, that area. And that, yes, there's a much more to what we call Earth than what we think
Mhm.
is Earth. I've learned, that we're not necessarily on a flat Earth, but we probably are sort of what they would call, I guess, a toroidal sort of rounded sort of. Remember the Michelin tire
Yeah.
guy?
Well, like a donut.
Like
That's
multiple
sort of
donuts. Like
yeah.
Earth is that small one at the top, and then underneath it is another something under that that's bigger, and then underneath that even bigger. So we're stacked as opposed to flying out in. You see this picture over here we have on the wall with like this there. Where it's not what they show us. What they've been showing us for the most part has been. Maybe they haven't had.
That's the false reality.
Yeah, they've been creating the imagery of what they want us to think.
They
believe
must
space
control
is.
the narrative.
Yeah, so we're sitting. We may be, moving, and shifting, but we're not spinning all these millions of miles an hour and just staying. We're not doing that, y'all. We're not doing that, and we're learning more and more of these things, and it's things like that, even stretching your mind and your imagination and being able to study things that they didn't give it, but if it's out there, find that information and let your spirit agree or disagree with it. That's how I deal with it. If it resonates, because we talk about frequency, if it resonates with your spirit or with your soul, then then hold on to that.
This is what's happening now. Let's look at what's happening now. And this is where, and I think this has much to do with your choice of us talking about this in these last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Because the systems are dissolving, right? Even though the institutions of this present system weren't built in humanity's interest. We have related to them. So by nature dismantling them, not because of necessarily Some are being dismantled by political choice, but all of them all together and overall are being dismantled by nature. And this, I think, has to do with the urgency of them looking to veil or to break the cosmo fabrics of the universe, dimensional fabrics, meaning that they're on a tear. And although they're not dumb to everything, they're kind of behind the 8 ball on this creation that they've made on top of the creation, if you get the point. Mm-hmm. And what do they do with the masses while this is going on, and then still trying to control? And this has much to do with why they take this position, the necessity of trying to genocide out, and then trying to use the AI bots. However, what they're discovering is that they can't maintain the monetary trade system as it stands if they get rid of too many of the Aboriginals. They need to bring in a workforce. So now, if you look at this, you understand the politics. And it was this dawning, when you look and you see motive, meaning none of this stuff was accidental. So while they're clashing and they're trying to move on these things, and then you have maybe a few among them who are trying to clean this up. So that's the clash you see going on with them, if you get the point. And then with consideration that they know in the background that there's some who are aware of the Tartarian distortion part of history, where they've, told the people that a lot of these buildings, they were built by them in the early period, when actually they were already thousands of years old and they existed long before. So all of their operations, by virtue of dissolution by nature, so we're talking nature dissolution, right? They can't control that. So back to what you're saying, they're trying to keep these people in this mental control, and then genocide enough of them out so that when the people rebel, that they can control what's left, and then try to replace what they remove with AI bots or robots. And what's happening is that it's not working out for them. That's what they're dealing with the WEF right now. I think that's what they're having. So to cover it up, they're talking about de-dollarization and stuff like that, when it's not so much that as it is what you would call the liquidity of it. So long as it's fiat, the liquidity is the issue, not whether or not it is the dollar itself. But because most of these contracts that are around the world were built on the dollar system, it's not that the dollar is they need to de-dollarize in that sense. They need more of them to control the dilution of them, which they'll call inflation, to hold together their power structure for the few on the planet that are not cooperating, which would be the ancient Manchurian families that are presented as China. And look at how, because remember,
China,
almost everybody else they've conquered.
They're saying that China is like almost empty, not empty, but that there's a lot of people missing from that country.
Yes, yeah.
Where to go?
But that's all over. Now, so when you look at this, Dr. G, what it's telling us is that a lot of things that they're showing us, in the political realm, is total theater. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this stuff has already taken place. And so they're doing CGI and AI to still control our minds right now, when a lot of this stuff has already been dismantled. Think about it. Anyway.
So, well, we could probably jump ahead a little bit so we can.
No, I'm just looking at, even when you talk, absolutely, why they introduced, or they've been promoting transhumanism. Because when you look at King Alfred, that's there.
What about the Georgia Guidestones?
Yeah, I think they dismantled.
Well, they did, but I'm just saying, when you read what they said, they were talking about, depopulation.
Yeah, to digitize the divine. And so the gene editing, isn't that eugenics?
Yeah.
Right. So the gene editing to smart dust or neural implants, and
that's the stuff with
they want to sever the guideline or your
Neuralink.
So now, even as you're talking about that, right? So why is this theater with this clash between Elon
and Trump,
unless that's theater and that was already done? And this is just to keep us busy, and that he's not the original Elon, that they've already dealt with him. But this is for public consumption. Then when he cut out the so-called benefit, I think it was 7,000 notes for people who bought electric vehicles. And so he killed that when they retracted that. So we're looking at battles that they're having among themselves. So that indicates theater, which means much of this stuff, meaning that much of the stuff that they're presenting to the masses is really already done. And they're controlling the narrative, meaning that they're giving us pictures, and they're creating bots, CGI videos, and giving it to us to control, while they're trying to break the fabric. Meaning that they may be a little bit behind in what they intended to do with CERN, and it ain't working out for them the way they wanted to, even though they've broken through. Maybe. All right. I'm just thinking, looking at this as we're going with this, and it's not science fiction; it's science now.
Yeah.
So they say their operations are to advance humanity, but what they really mean is to control humanity. Once they've got your thoughts on a cloud, your emotions on a chip, your memory on a server, they don't need change. They built a prison inside your own perception. And I say that has already been done from the beginning, that they've done even what you call the pagers, that this was already in the works. Wow. No different than when they're talking about, people talking about this could possibly lead to World War III. And we've lived our lives in World War III. They're talking about Fourth World War. Wow. Four corners of the earth. I'm just looking at this thing as, it's like because it becomes more obvious that this is theater.
Well, and this is why protecting your light field is no longer optional. It's required. You need to be clearing your energy on a daily basis. You need to guard your sleep. Get enough sleep. We need, sufficient sleep in order. There's a period of time, the way we were created and fashioned, that we sleep is a restorative time within our bodies. And I remember, a lot of you might remember, I remember when TV used to go off, those little the multicolored, strands with things come up, the Star Spangled Banner, and everything's off. Nothing, they have it so 24/7. Nobody's, people can stay up, binge watch what I've been binge watched and so forth. But sleep is a time of restoration. So it is also, for some of us, it's a time of our astral travel and going and getting the information that we need in the astral realm and bringing it back into this realm. So sleep is important. Making sure you're protected, your crown is protected. Taking your herbs, speaking over your water, because we know the water holds memories and whatever you say, right? whatever you said, and speaking affirmations over your body. Yeah. And you also, you need to detox sometimes from this stuff, from media, from us, from fear, from anything that glorifies dysfunction. Take a break from that stuff. It includes some of the things that we would call entertainment, the programs, you to a place where we think that chaos is normal. It is not normal. And then violence and degeneracy and sexuality and all this stuff that they've just made out there. I mean, you can't even protect your children anymore from this because it's on 24/7. They can click on something somewhere and find something that we wouldn't even have dreamed of looking at. Sometimes we flinch at as adults, but all of this stuff has become available. But you have to understand, we are alchemists, and the vibrational sisters, we are alchemists, the vibrational midwives of this dimensional shift. That's why they target our children with the tablets. They're still giving them the crap, the shots, if you will, the sugar, the stories that erase who they are. They don't have to be this, they can be that, and all of that stuff. Our children, especially our young ones, are star beings. We star beings. We part star, part earth. But our children are coming in is a new, especially the younger, I don't know whether it's X, Y, whatever one it is now, whoever. These are definitely star children. These are way ahead of advance. I see 2-year-olds with cell phones, which is terrible because they're getting that those frequencies. But cell phones sitting up doing TikTok selfies and stuff. They already came in knowing. They know who they are, but we need to help guide them. We have crystalline codes in melanated skin. So if you know that, and it's our sacred duty to guard,
taking charge.
Yeah, we have to guard their light and not hand it over to some Wi-Fi signal or something, whatever they got set up in the sky, the eye in the sky that's tracking everybody. We have to guard the light of our children. And as a mother, as a grandmother, and a guide to many, I say this to sisters and brothers that are raising children. This world is no longer safe by default. We can't rely on institutions and governments or even schools to protect our babies. In fact, those are the systems that really have become, I want to say, the breeding grounds for indoctrination and surveillance and normalcy with stuff that we would never have taken in and allowed to happen in the past. Now they're making all this stuff normal, Grand Sheik. Yeah. It's vibrational frequency manipulations. We're talking about, we're talking about that, So we're raising children in a digital battlefield. Yeah. They
and there's psychic attacks.
Yeah, they come through devices. They come through the stories. They come to these attacks through what they're fed, the foods that they're eating, the non-nutritional everything.
Notice that the foods are tasting different, or some of them are losing their taste.
They use the laboratory to create taste sensations and so forth for stuff that's actually killing the children and killing us too. So but everything, you look at stuff coming up in the cartoons and everything that they're doing, everything has a message to try to shift and change the energy and the frequency of the young people so that they will prepare them for the reset that they're trying to create. They want them to be indoctrinated so that they will be able to, march to the beat of the drums that they're beating, and the rest of us, they can, either we all die off or they gonna kick us off, tick us off, so that we won't be here to protect and to say that's not the way it's supposed to be.
That's what they're talking about in their security page.
Right.
So you're dealing with consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So they know that if we're conscious of it, our vibration change and they can't pull it off.
Right.
So
that's why we have to
talk about your power.
But we have to stand in the gap. They used to say that in the church, and we had to stand in the gap. Well, we have to stand in the gap, period, because we have to create those shields, the energetic seals, those emotional seals, those spiritual seals. That means that we have to teach our young people, our children, who they are before they tell them who they are. And we also have to tell them teach them who they're not. You have to teach them who they're not.
And again, that's why look what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is why I say, and I always carry this with me. Every once in a while, every week or every moon, whatever, just this part, even though there's more over there, to read this to yourself, frame it, put it on a wall, So you don't forget, because of different things that take place, because remember, they're doing psychic attack and they're doing economic attacks. Most people are distracted by economic attacks. And it becomes in your mind primal when it's all dissolving and it's illusion anyway, to keep you from paying attention that it's an operation of genocide. You don't, you're thinking, oh, Bill, it's genocide. But if they keep you thinking Bill, you're not paying attention to them saying, oh, you need a mask this week. And then they're shooting people again, and they'll knock off thousands of people, right? And people look at it as an incidental in interfering with their jobs, right? Just like people in different departments right now, they're dumping people by the thousands, right? So from a political economic perspective, what are they going to do with all these thousands of people? Is it a knowing already that the fiat has run its course? And while because the deal, if they're not working right, and that system's in place, right, that means they can't buy, right? So you have thousands of people, and so that means all of the so-called support systems in short order are going to collapse. They can't do anything but do that, because they can't service all the people. No different than the people starting to get a key to what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So yes.
Yeah, but that's true. But just to get past this part with the children, we really need to teach our children, speak affirmations over not only ourselves but over our children. We have with AO scan. Mm-hmm. We literally have, how people wear those little rubber bracelets.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We have where you can take the rubber bracelets or any item, and you can program through the device affirmations.
Yes.
Into any item, and what a lot of times parents will do is we'll do the programming on something rubber like this, because children are break things and so forth. And
we're taking control of the transhumanism, because that's exactly what
right. So when we program what you want into that bracelet, like just one of those rubber ones from the Dollar Tree, but you can program into it through the AO scan the affirmations that you want. As long as that child is wearing that and it has been programmed for that child, those affirmations are kind of energetically.
So look at the earlier period, and what they used to do with the amulets. Same thing, except they did it with mental,
right,
and ritual.
Right. So we have to speak them, give them affirmations, teaching them real history, not his story, and nourishing them with like, don't let them eat all the junk food that's out. Don't buy everything. Read the back, see what's in that stuff. Pretty much, if it's cereal, it's probably no good anyway. But give their minds, the positive stories. Shut the television off. Sometimes don't let them look at all, like I said, all that crap. And many of us, like I said, we are reparenting ourselves, and while parenting our children. If you're parenting, I mean, I'm a great grandmother now, so I don't have any little ones, but it's still important. I know how important it is to be role models, positive role models to young people, because we've got to heal ourselves, Grand Sheik, because unhealed hurt people. So a lot of times our children are suffering from the hurts that we have not ourselves healed from. So we need to take do our shadow work, realize where it is that we are needing to, like I said recently, realized and concluded that I do have ADHD, and it's not a bad thing, but I'm rechanging the thought from it being a disorder, for it just, it's just a description. I am a neurodivergent being. My brain is working like 90. When my mother just say 90 going south, but that's how I've been wired all my life. I didn't have a title for it, but if that's what you call it, I'm going to redefine it. We have to redefine things even for ourselves and for our children. Like I said, unhealed wounds create frequency distortions, and your children and other people around you begin to absorb that. Even if you don't say anything, it's a frequency. Frequencies emit, right? It comes out. It comes as what you hold it in comes out. It comes out. So this is really the hour, Grand Sheik, of the awakened parent or caregiver, or the conscious guardian. We have to be protectors of the soul codes that are in our young people. You know, if you've been entrusted with a child in this lifetime, then you're cultivating a frequency. You need to know that a future. You know, a light that may carry codes to free nations. I mean, just think about your mother. You know, I don't know. I know my mother, and it's in my book. My mother didn't know she was pregnant with me until she was in her 5th month, and then when she found out she was pregnant with me, she tried to get rid of me. That was when I was in there. Had been there back then. I guess they were doing 5 months of abortions, and she told me all the things. You know, she jumped down the steps, sat on turpentine bucket, and all that. But guess what? When I'm saying future, your child, I'm not going to say that you would not be better or good in a good state had I not made it, but because I did make it. House of Reawakening Minds, meeting you and all that. We don't know what our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, what they have to bring to offer humanity to save us from the crap that we are experiencing. So we have to be the ones, the nurturers of that, the cultivators of that. We cannot be offering to them.
We can't sit back passively
and we can't be negative, right? And we can't be a negative example, negative role models. You can't be that. You're a role model one way or another, good, better, and different. So choose to be a good one. You know, they guard their rest. Like I said, the children they don't let them stay up all night and look at all kinds of shit. I'm saying that, but don't let them. Correct them with love, not fear, not foul language. I've seen heard so many people talk to their children worse than you. Some people with, you know, adults to adults, they you know, talk, don't do that. Don't do that. And remember that you're not alone. And it takes a whole village. It takes a village. Yeah. So, you know, we're discerning, you know, if you will, the frequency. And discernment is not judgment. It's frequency recognition. It's knowing what's going on. And in this false matrix, frequency deception is the norm. I mean, we don't know what to believe. You know what I mean? You got to really have your stuff turned on, Grand Sheik, to discern whether or not this stuff we're seeing and hearing is true. And if you want to let your emotions and energy get tied up in it, or, you know, back up away from that stuff.
Don't let it attach you.
Yeah, when someone,
it's a psychic attack.
Yeah, because when someone speaks, you have to check how your spirit responds. You know, whether does your chest feel light, or does your stomach get tight, or I mean, if it does, it's not paranoia. That's your inner guidance, and that's your divine sonar pinging, saying I'm danger.
Your intuitive reaction.
Yeah, your intuition. Trust intuition as the veil is being, you know, ripped and everything is getting thinner. You know, our intuitive gifts. I've always been intuitive, but even now, so much more so. So we've been trained to override our intuition in favor of politeness. But but in this hour, we can't afford to be polite
or naive
when our soul is saying, "Get out!" You know, run, go the other direction. We can't do that. No.
That's right. So absolutely, Dr. G. And part of discerning and discernment as a discipline, as you activate it, right, is vetting people by their actions. And this is why it's important to understand jurisdiction. So when you hear the word, understand jurisdiction involves personam, that means the person. Subject matter, that means subject matter, just what it means, jurisdiction. And territorial, that means the earth. That means geography, location, venue, etc. Right? So if someone's speaking on behalf or claiming to be speaking on behalf of our people, but still identifies as Black, such persons are operating in the false jurisdiction of civil liter mortuus, or what is known as civil death, which constitutes in the connotative linguistics as slavery. And so when you follow teachers, influencers, leaders, ask what law do they stand under?
Or you know, like even you've been so
what
consistent.
Is the jurisdiction?
Right, but you've been so consistent over the years that I think a lot of times people, unless they're new to you, they know where you stand. Even though you have your detractors, you have those ones who try to say, you know, but we know, those of us who know, we know.
Old position.
But you gotta check it.
Yeah. So what flag? So that means what political, structured, national platform, because that's what the flag or the law of Vixillum presents. And in law, whether you're dealing with shipping on waters or shipping and trade, we refer to that as flying your colors. So when they flying your colors, they're talking about in the law of Vixillum, your flag that represent your nation. So what history are they ignoring? Because many of them are controlled opposition actors hired to corral the consciousness and the conscious.
Wow.
Or to suppress the conscious. Now, so that's why, we always say, Dr. J, study etymology so that you'll understand language.
Yeah.
So, and then you understand connotative linguistics, and why in actuality, that's just not an idea or thought upon etymology, but it's actually, they have been meeting yearly dealing with etymological mind control or fad constructs. And that's where they use the operations of what we call within the structure of MK Ultra connotative linguistics. And that's where they introduce certain cultures for targeted people, and the people think it's their culture when actually you're casting spells.
Wow.
And so that's why it's important to study etymology and know what words really mean, know the morphology of words, know their history, know their limitations, know the difference between the denotation of what it actually is, connotation, what is presumed to be based on the controlled narrative that is really anti-etymology. So study cosmology, because that's the foundation of human culture on this planet, is cosmology. That is in itself the greater part of more sciences also. So know what time it is, really is not just time by a clock, but not just by sidereal measurement of the cosmos. Study law, principle of law, divine law, hermetic law, and know who you yourself, both biologically, pedigree, and by birthright, who you really are, and be yourself.
Really?
Yield the floor,
Yeah, well, yeah, and protect your mind from spell casting, and that includes, songs, stuff we listen to, slogans and hashtags, because language creates contracts, and that's why they call it spelling.
Yeah,
that's why they call it spelling. So when you say I can't take it anymore, the universe hears you, and hears it as an instruction. When you say I'm broke, that becomes your energetic broadcast.
So don't be broke.
No, instead you have to affirm the opposite. I am supported. I am centered. I am wealthy, in in truth, and wealthy in being. You know what I mean? A discernment isn't just defensive; it's creative. You're not just protecting yourself from falsehood. You're actively shaping a reality that honors your divine blueprint.
Yep, exactly. And so that's what they, when you're in that state of mind, that's what is called sovereignty. And even when they talk about sovereignty, they usually misrepresent it, which makes it questionable to people. That's why people really need to study it, because many people, because of so many attacks have been made on Aboriginal people, the attack is to remove sovereignty. That's your natural right of being and your natural state in harmony with divine law. So exactly, and remember, discernment also means choosing when to speak and when to move in silence. And sometimes your vibration is your loudest declaration. When you walk in integrity, in remembrance, in declared status, your presence shifts rooms. Your alignment speaks louder than argument. And you become a tuning fork for truth. And falsehood either flees or transforms. So ask yourself, what are you resonating? I.e., what is your resonance, right? And what are you permitting? What are you allowing? What are you agreeing to? Because in the matrix, and particularly the false matrix, your energy is currency. And so don't spend your currency on anything that doesn't pay your soul. You're the floor, Dr.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Grand Sheik. And I think for my part, I want to close by saying this, at least this part, because we, like I said, we have sections that when it gets heavy, and it will get heavy
right now, because things are being dissolved. Because remember, and this is why it's important, like you always say, Dr. G, discernment of the shift, because if people don't comprehend what's happening cosmologically, right? The disruption of all institutions is disrupting people's lives, because we've been tied to these things. So don't be fearful or alarmed or fall to the alarm, which is the natural, because things are falling apart. But understanding to step back and observe and understand this must take place. So things are going to be disordered. Things are going to be wishy-washy. You're going to see a lot of people striking out because they feel threatened, but understand this has to go. And it's sort of like some things are being metered and controlled, like we've always saying, some of those who know what's going on are doing what you call controlled demolition. And this is another reason why so much is going on in the social, political, economic realm, to keep people distracted so that a lot of people don't crack up. Because remember, it was intended for the people to crack up under these pressures. So reminding you why certain things were done, why certain things were said. And this is another reason why it's important for you to go within to protect yourself and respect your intuitive mind, which we've always said. Go ahead, Dr. Lee.
Well, what I was going to say, that when it gets heavy, and it will, I want you to remember to breathe, to recalibrate, and remember who you are. Remember who you are. You're not crazy. You're not late. You're not lost. You are a sovereign soul in a borrowed body, navigating a manipulated timeline with the wisdom of many lifetimes. In other words, you are a spirit having a human experience. You are, as I would call it, a glitch in their system, a holy disruption, a cosmic correction. So my suggestion and recommendation is that you vibrate accordingly.
Yeah.
Accordingly, that you vibrate.
Yes, and so indeed, you have to vet everything and everyone, especially those who are speaking in your name.
Yeah. So
etc.
yeah. So what I want to do is, at this time, is we have been able to go to get to the end.
Yeah, to some of our stuff.
Yeah, of what we want to do.
Yeah,
and
you're not crazy. You're not pushing.
yeah. So I do want to share just a little bit here for you to just something to think about. It's something to think about, right? Let me see, did I do? Well, let's just share this. Because what I did, what I did was just did a little bit of a repeat, which I didn't need to do. So
some bullet points so that we can stay focused.
Yeah. So
So
here we go. So basically, what we wanted to say to is, we hope that you would discern what's going on in and around your life in these last, I want to say, what would you go back to? I want to go back to 2020. I mean, you've been saying stuff for a long time, but I think we started between 2019 and so 2020, we started really seeing a major shift
yes.
in things. And so it's almost like, and I don't know if any of you agree with me, but I may have said it to you too, Grand Sheik. It's almost like we're living in another dimension, a twilight zone. I don't know if any of you feel like that, like
yeah, that's because it's dismantlement.
Yeah, right. So for those that don't understand your path though, and what you're feeling, just let them watch you. To the system that tried to erase you, let it collapse. It's going to anyway.
Yeah, don't hold on, because remember, this is another reason why they want to keep us. See, because if they keep us attached to the system, we give it life.
Right.
Let it go. And this is back now with the self-discipline that you're expressing right now, the metaphor for that is called render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's what that means. Meaning that even though you've been attached to it, it's been because it's the cage. Let it go.
Listen, I'm decluttering of like 20 years of the clothes and stuff, the stuff that used to fit and don't fit and stuff that, and I'm in a let it go mode. But we have to do that with our life, period.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to let some people go. You may have to let some projects go that aren't served. If it doesn't serve you and where your energy, you're whatever, wherever your energy goes, that's where manifestation is.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be all caught up in the chaos and the craziness that they created. So we're not defined by their language nor their laws or their lies. We're defined by our alignment to truth, to nature, and to the Most High. So walk like you remember, like Kyle, remember who you are, or speak.
So remember, and this is important,
Right.
so that people can comprehend what's going on around.
Yeah.
Humanity does not rise until the matriarchy rises again.
Right.
But the matriarchy must do the shadow work. Because remember, the fall came with the fall of the matriarchy. The rise comes with the rise of the matriarchy. So cognizance and connection to the intuitive mind with absent of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And because remember, one of the major things that injured us, that started to fall, was vanity. So work, that's one of the keys.
Right.
So if you know your history, one of the major things that caused the fall was vanity.
Mm-hmm.
Conquer vanity, conquer the ego, give back to Rome's narrative.
And don't mourn over that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't wail because them ships is burning, if you get the point.
Right. Well, give thanks. Great Sheik, I appreciate you so much. And I give thanks, really, we do to you, the viewers, for being present and engaged and courageous enough to sit with truth that, as I said, disrupts the status quo, and to, allow us to, present and sometimes,
realignment.
Yeah, but hopefully this wasn't just a lecture, and hopefully you participated in what we want to call recalibration. Your spirit knows this. Your cells, know this, and you're still here, and it's because you're ready. So I leave you with this charge: guard your gates. Your gates. All the places where things come in: the eyes, the ears, the heart. Honor your vessel. Trust your knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Feed your light. Don't go back to being normal, because normal was never natural. Instead, return to your nature. Return to the memory of who you were before that programming started, before the pain and before the veil. I mean, when you said, "Send me, I go," because we all made a decision to come here, Grand Sheik, and we wanted to be here for such a time as this.
Mm-hmm.
We knew what it was going to be like. We just forgot.
Yeah.
So that's what we call. I think this work is called reawakening minds, to reawaken, to remember what it is you said you wanted to do when you said, I think that man and that woman get together and make me. I'll come through them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'll come and I'll do, and yeah, we get to veer off course and do, other things, but sooner or later you got to get back on track. What they said was, you train up a child in the way that he or she should go, and when they're old, they won't depart. They early in life, they knew in the first 7 years, that was Rome, that if they indoctrinated their ideologies and whatever into children, that they had them for life. Fortunately, we can be deprogrammed.
Yes.
we can come back to the one we were before we got here and got messed with. So you just know that you're not alone on this journey. We're walking beside you. More importantly, the ancestors are walking with us. We're not by ourselves. We got a whole army.
And it's back to principle. Because remember, man, which is the species, not gender. Man is the species.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, when you're looking at the issue of matrix is the nature of things, because matrix means womb. This is the reason why the goddess is first by nature.
Right, because a man doesn't have a womb, a male.
Mother crowns the sun. Sun is projective. That's why mothers set the rules and they send their sons out to do the work. Don't get it twisted. The problem that is when we start following Rome, we start allowing them to get us competing with each other, which is the wrong concept of what the relationship is. And then they just created division and conquered us. And because what is nations? Nation comes from nativity, right? So if they call a flag, don't they call the nation she? Don't they call the vixen the flag she? Right? Yes. Mm-hmm. Now the deal of it is get back to principles without vanity. It's not hard. People just keep looking at this stuff with ego and it's still cooperating with each other. We're competing with each other. It's not how we're supposed to be doing this thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Grand Sheik, before we go, we had we might be able to answer a few questions. I was trying to start some. Is any of these you want to? Okay. Okay, here we go. Here's somebody said, it was early on, I know this is off topic, but I'm curious as to your opinion on cremation. Is it something we should do, or is it best to be buried?
Well, we often do cremation because we want to leave the rest of the earth for the living. And it's just a speedier way taking the organic cells back to the earth.
And it does
now, when you look at
ashes to
ashes, dust to dust.
Dust to dust.
Because when you look at all the graveyards around the world, they take up too much space for the living.
Yeah. And the other thing I saw a study not too long ago talking about the fact that cremation was better than burial because burial was like putting a seed in the ground to recycle to get out of that. But what the point they made was that the person's the body should not be cremated too soon. So if somebody waits like a couple weeks, like you said, the energy of that soul kind of needs, maybe a couple of weeks or something.
Because
10
we
days.
Still deal with the numbers of 9.
Well, yeah,
7 and 2 is 9. So within 72 hours, we usually cremate, because even if there's any what you call disease or impurity, the fire purifies.
Well, this was that you should not cremate too soon, only because the spirit give that soul, if you will, a chance to adjust to being out of that body. It stays around the body, but cremation was the recommended way, if you will.
And that's so that a lot of souls don't linger.
Right.
A lot of times they do.
Right.
They don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm. So let me see where we are.
So when you look at that, you understand why the ancient ones used cremation as a general protocol in the ancient Asiatic world.
Right, they would put the bodies on the funeral pyres and so forth. And now, the difference between renting the casket, if even with cremation, you could still have a service, and then most people, when it says burial private, that they're going to be cremated. They may have a service, but then they don't.
And they have their urn there. That's what you see in ancient Yucatan and ancient Egypt.
Right.
And ancient Amaru, America, that all over the Asiatic world, that was always been a part of the culture.
Right. Here's a question. Okay. Hello, Dr. Jean Grand Sheik. Can you please explain what's really going on with the tariff war between Canada and U.S.? Thank you.
All right. Basically, what you see is them trying to figure out what they're going to do for what you call liquidity of currency when the nations are rejecting the circle church and chanceries control through the fiat currency of the bar. It is not so much the de-dollarization, is their capacity to graft fees under the fraud, and they're trying to wrest control there. We keep in mind that both the U.S. corporation and Canada have the same international number under the Crown of England. And so what you see is them fighting among each other. But even part of that is what you would call controlled opposition.
Okay.
Because what they're really concerned about is Mexico coming up, right? Because remember, much of your silver comes from Mexico. And they worry about the Manchurian families because even though they occupied Manchuria in the early part of the last century, that they never totally conquered Manchuria. This is the real reason why the battles that they're taking place in Canaan land and in Ukraine and at Russia, the real target is the Manchurian families. So what's going on between Canada and here is here under the U.S. corporation company. I would say that's more theater than reality, including the fact that many of the hybrid Europeans who know the real history are trying to annex Alberta territory of Canada under United States corporation jurisdiction because they're battling to save the hegemony. So that's what you see going on.
Okay.
And the tariffs is kind of cover up the fact that the bond system is collapsing.
Okay, here's the next one. Well, can you ask Taj about the reawakening of ancient Albion, please? Ancient Albion.
Peoples,
Please, PLS, please.
Hmm?
It says please. That's a act short for please. It's saying they want to ask you about the awakening of ancient Albion.
Oh, well, ancient Albion is Ingla land. Ingla land. Then you would be kind of talking about Iberia. If you're talking about the ancient peoples or the Aboriginals, you'd be talking about Iberia. If you're talking about Albion, the political state of the hybrids, etc., you will see that they're actually struggling to help maintain the hegemony because they actually own the corporation with the Khazarian mafia that the people today call Jews that are not Jews. That's really Khazarian mafia. And they're trying to protect or stabilize what is falling is the hegemony of that operations of the Unum Sanctum operations. If you're talking about the Albions as from a political system, but if you're talking about that territory relative to the Aboriginals, you'd be talking about Iberia.
Okay, that's nice.
So if the Aboriginals are waking up, it's Iberia. If those who are fighting to maintain the hegemony, it's Albion.
How about the biggest telescope named Lucifer at the Vatican? What are they waiting to see before everybody else?
No, they're always keeping up with the return, or what you would call those who from the heavens come to earth type thing.
Anunnaki.
Yeah, well, that's what the word means. It's not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it could be
So,
any of
and they know, yes. And they know that they have held humanity, for the most part, in servitude for a few thousands of years. And so what they refer to as disclosure has to do with that also. And so they've been getting signals of what they would call unidentified objects that's within this solar system that they recognize are not a comet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're concerned with that because they already know that what is referred to among the hierarchy of 9 of the angels, and among that hierarchy, what they call cherubim and seraphims, they have been the main 2 of the hierarchy of the angels that have been protecting Midgard. And so when you hear people of the ancient world doing what you call ritual prayers, and they talk about the cherubim and seraphim, or even when you see in certain cultures where they greet each other and you see them lean to the left shoulder and lean to the right shoulder and then lean cheek to cheek to the person, as cherubim, seraphim, fallen angel. So when you see those things, that has to do with their concern, because remember, the Vatican represents the negative priesthood on the planet, i.e. what they call themselves God, as demonstrated in John 8:44, where Yeshua is rejecting them, and also in book 1 and book 2 of Thessalonians in the Septuaginta and the Bible.
Okay. So this last one will take, this is directed to it.
So they're keeping their heads to the sky,
Right.
Because they know. Because remember, this is the issue with
Let me go back to
the Heliacal rising of black sun, Sirius.
This is
That's what's taking place now. This is again why things. This is why like some people, if you want to think about it, why would some people think, why are they letting their crown jewel? Those of you who've been across the country, City of Angels, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, area-wise, and remember that was Khalifa's land, and Khalifa was the last of the Moorish caliphs battling them. This is why California is considered one of their crown jewels. Notice how they will let San Francisco and Los Angeles go to pot. Do you think they let that stuff get that far unless they kind of sense that it's kind of over and they redirected their attentions to some other things of discernment, trying to save, meaning that they recognize that the hybrid empire is over. They're not going to say it, but it's sort of like they're kind of let it go because they're not investing in it with the same energy that they would have before. I mean, they're kind of looking back past that in the battlefield, and they start looking more at a galactic battle, and they don't have time to try to save something that's already done for. Kind of look at it that way.
Here we go. The world beyond the ice walls. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. G and Sir? So it would be you.
I look at the ice walls as not just Antarctica, but a state of mind, your capacity to development. Because the ice walls is simply, they've frozen your mind 32 degrees, 33 degrees, you start to flow. And look at it metaphorically with your development too, not just geographical location. Because when humanity evolves, you don't necessarily need to move this body to go to Antarctica, or you go there mentally. And so as a substitute for themselves, they use what they call the looking glass. And they've been using it for quite some time. Because nothing's purer than humanity that begins to know herself and astro travels. The only things locked us down is mostly belief systems that were designed to control the mind, false narratives, to stagnate your vibration. And they know by the nature of the cosmos, the quickening is already taking place. So that means the vibration is accelerating and they can't stop it. So they're just being ahead. They're doing things to be ahead of what they understand and comprehend. Because keep in mind, they know that when we're looking at a lot of these things, we're not looking at them metaphorically, we're looking at them geographically. No, ice wall is mind block.
That's his opinion. Mine, as you asked, I believe that the ice wall exists, or is a ring, if you will. It's ice around the perimeter, if you will, of what we're calling Earth, but that the other so-called lands that are beyond the ice walls. Again, when I was talking earlier, I was talking about how, and I'm not saying that we're not flat, but I don't think we're pancake flat. We're round, then around and round. Like say, just think at least 3 layers, maybe more. And each one, when we see those pictures, it's like we're looking at it from an area view. So you see the outer rings, but really what they are on top of each other, if you will, and maybe not sandwiched on top, but like the Michelin tire ring, if you know, the 3 rings that get bigger and bigger, and that these other realities exist.
Yes.
There is actually, I remember seeing a movie, a series, I forgot what it was called The Event. Look it up. It's probably still out there if you have one of those, if you're able to get those old videos. Let's look up something called The Event. It was 22 episodes, and it told a lot about the frozen areas and beings that have been here for such a long time and have acclimated into our society, but they came here from a crash site, and some of them have been kept on a base in a very cold place called Inastranca, which I think is just a fake name for where they actually have people here beyond so-called ice wall. So I believe it exists. I believe that we live dimensionally, and that there are other dimensions, and that as the veil is thinning and disappearing, we're able to get, as even as Taj says, Grand Sheik says, we can actually go to those places in consciously in our travels, because before, until here lately, we didn't even know they existed. So you wouldn't even think that way. But now you can set your intentions on where you want to travel to. And just like those who are trained and able to do remote viewing and so forth, we too can make those travels and see where these other lands are and these other beings and life, forms are. And I don't believe we're here by ourselves. I don't believe in outer space like they've given it to us. I believe that it's layered, turtle, and I believe that the best and greatest space that has not been explored is inner space. So back to this. So what I want to do.
When you, as an interjection to Dr. G, when you read 11490 and you look at details, you can see that those considerations from a scientific perspective is part of their thought processes. Exactly what you're saying, simply just saying it bluntly and scientifically.
Is this a question? Let me see right quick. Is this the 1% Albion's children that are keeping up what they have been told to do? If they start seeing too many sleepy-headed Moors begin waking up to take over their estate.
It ain't theirs estate.
Well,
no reversion of a state.
Right, but
because remember now, you got to look at this. You got to look this in context. Just what you're bringing up now, you understand part of the conversation that's not told to the public that they talk about on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. What you're mentioning is primal to those conversations. And the secondary maintenance, administrative maintenance, has been what you call the Bilderberger group meetings around the world. In other words, like this point, when you kind of understand the real geopolitics, they're still throwing the people off in their thought processes. But at the same time, it's all still in your face. It just ain't what you think it is.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, before we go, we're just going to remind you that on 4 Fridays now, we do have our 4 Friday class, and we are grateful to those of you who travel from near and far, mostly far, to come and be a part. Our next 4 Friday class is actually Friday, August 22nd. And we are recommending, if people want to come on that particular weekend, we have a couple of things going on. I don't have so on the 22nd, which is our civics class with yours truly and Grand Sheik and teaching Lady J. On the 23rd, the very next day, we have a really big concert here, a free concert about 3 blocks from House of Reawakening Mind with top-notch.
So you can really make it a weekend.
Yeah, we have it's from 12 to 7 at Burton Park, which is like, you can literally park at the House of Reawakening Mind and walk up the street 3 blocks
right up the street.
to go to it. It's a big concert. It's usually over 1,000 people there, food vendors and stuff the next day. And then the day after that there we go.
Your abundance will be there.
Yeah, but then then we're having our Sunday, August 24th, community flea market at House of Reawakening Mind. It's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it's rain or shine because it's going to be indoors. We might have some outdoor vendors if the weather permits, but if it does not, we'll be upstairs and maybe even downstairs if we need to be. But it should be a really, really good event. So that's the 22nd, the 23rd is the concert, and the 24th is and the reason why I don't have a flyer for the concert is it's not our concert, but hey, it's a really good concert. It has about 7, 8 different acts, and you would thoroughly enjoy it. But yeah, so we invite you to come out and be a part of that. Also, we have this year, we have our 4-day conference coming up in September called Private Lives. I know it looks a little dark, but that's like a man in the dark, like in the dark with a private eye hat on. It's our Private Lives conference. We have not had a conference this year. This is it. We had added an extra day. An extra day. So if you go to our website, which is houseofreawakeningminds.org, right? You can get the links to purchase your ticket. So tickets. We also have some vendor spots. I think we have like 6 vendor spots. But if we'd love to have you at the conference, we also will have so 3 days are you're speaking, I guess, on the first day. Then we have 2 days of straight conference on how to live in private for those of you who want to get out of the public into your private life.
Like a workshop.
And then on the 4th day, which is the Sunday, is when we have our metaphysical holistic day. We have a lot of that's when we do everything about health and wellness with Dr. Dave Levy, VA, Dr. Ella Gon, Deborah Clark Smith L, and yours truly, myself. I will be probably giving body scans on that day as a part of what I'm doing. So we'd love to have you at the conference. September, it's real small up there. Thursday, September 25th through Sunday, September 28th, 2025. That's the flyer. Go to the website and you can get your tickets. The links are right there. Yeah. Let me see. I guess I'm trying to see where. houseofreawakeningminds.org or wherever I'm trying to find. Oh, here we go. Preparation. Go to our website. It's still a work in progress, but we do have something up. So we want to thank our brother Raj Bristol Bay for all the work that he is doing an awesome job. We are very pleased. So I think that's it, Grand Sheik. What do you think?
Yeah, at least we got most of the stuff, and even though I know you have more to say.
We done on that. We gonna be on something else when we come back the next time. Let me just see what the people are saying at the end. Let me see. Tell us, what are your thoughts on the teachings of Dr. Malachi York? I noticed you never speak on him. He spoke about this 20 years ago. Energy still. Yeah. Do you want to respond to that?
Put it up.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the teachings of Dr. Malachi York? I noticed you never speak on him. He spoke about this 20 years ago.
Oh, pretty much, because as a matter of fact, Dr. York had actually took my lesson book 14, and that was one of the first instruments that he put out. He copied that, and it's no need to, because he did his work relative to uplifting the people, and of course, as usual, the platform was infiltrated by the Circle Church and Chancery via their 3-letter agencies.
So I don't know what this means, but this reason right here says they all incorporate Dr. York and their presentments without giving him credit and distorting the teachings as they do with my intellectual property. Well,
many of them do.
Well, first of all, I don't know anything. I know very little about Dr. York's teachings per se, but I will say this, that what is in the Akashic realm is available to all. We have not taken anything from any of Dr. York's anything. And
I was doing what I was doing before.
No, and if it happens to resonate, be the same as because
it's common knowledge.
And the Akashic realm, if you know anything, if you know what you know, it's available. That's why 2 or 3 people will show up at the patent office with the same patent almost on the same day, because they snatched what was out of the grass, what was in the Akashic realm, in the atmosphere. Nobody's taken anybody's. If I had taken anything from Dr. York's teaching, I would give credit.
I don't think so.
No, that's what they're saying. So I'm just saying it in all, and because I see some other things, y'all playing with people's lives. I'm not sure who this individual's talking to, but for one thing, we don't take stuff and not give credit where credit is due. Yeah. I worked on this and not from Dr. York's work. So, if that's what you think is happening, then you're wrong on that. So I just, beg to differ.
Let's make this very clear.
Yeah, make that we don't.
Most of the stuff on the platform that's presented here for years come from a lot of my work from 1978 on up to now. Long before Dr. York was even on the scene, when he was actually just dealing in Islam in New York before he became Dr. York.
Right. Well,
but remember the knowledge of the Moabite Moorish history, that's documented history that belongs to the people at large. Yeah. So it doesn't begin, and I think a lot of times people, if they don't know the history, don't know how to discern the Moorish history from different people's perceptions or concepts on projecting it or teaching it, meaning that when they think it's an information that someone makes up themselves, if you get the point, as opposed to a dissertation on the history. It's almost like people saying, if someone writes about the Whiggamore Party operations at Philadelphia, that history is their teaching.
You've
concept
taken mine. Stop. No. I think we're dealing with somebody with some problems. I think we're dealing with somebody with some problems, but that's okay. I'm going to be sweet about it. I'm going to keep my energy high. And I suggest, Alicia L., that you not, be on this channel if you feel that way about it, because I'm not taking.
It's not from here.
I'm not sure who you are at all. I don't even know who you are, let alone taking anything from you. I don't know who you are. So love you, send you the spirit, with the energy of love. But my recommendation is that, whatever, I don't even know who you are. So I can't even give you that. Tell the truth. Who is this? You know what, Alicia L., I'm going to be really nice about it. Seriously, I don't even know who this person is, but it's okay. Let me make sure I'm doing the right one. Alicia, tell the truth. Okay. Let me go there. I tell the truth. I don't even know who this individual is, let alone taking. So here's what we're going to do. There you go, Alicia. Bye. Bye, Alicia. Bye, Alicia. There you go. So let me go back to live, because that don't make any sense. I'm sitting there having an argument with them. How do we get back to the comments? Can't find them. Okay, I lost the comments. Oh my. Well, y'all. Here we go. I don't know what. Oh, here we go. Live too. Here we go. There we go. Bye. You're right. Bye, Felicia. And that's a Looney Tune. Go work about that. No, but I'm smiling. Y'all listen. Look, I'm not giving it bad energy. I just had to get rid of that and make strong source support to knowledge. That's not against it. Thank you so much, y'all. Thank you so much. It's always got to be one. It's always,
You're giving it energy.
I ain't giving it no. I'm
Don't
done with that.
If you talk on it, you're giving it energy.
I'm done with that, and I'm not angry or anything.
No, just don't give it energy.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoying our new song, but I still have to. Here's what I'm going to do, so I don't get rid of. I'm not trying to get rid of my spiritual daughter singing the song that she did like 10 years ago there, and sang it over the phone. So we're gonna go out with that. So you all are stepping on some hoof toes. I guess so. Sister Light. I guess so, Empress. Where to? I'm not sure. Asking where Sharon. Are they talking about Yeshua, Sister Yeshua? I don't know where she is. I think she's still, doing work, but I just don't, haven't seen her for a while. That's all I can say. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. So I'm going to go out with the normal song that we do, followed by the video.
The traditional.
Thank you. I love you too. I love all of y'all. I just, we hope to see you all on the 4th Friday here at the House of Reawakening Mind. Because we don't tell them. All right. So anyway, don't hang up. I'm going to do a lot of time. Here. So don't hang up. We're going to do both songs. Okay. So first we're going to do this one, and then we're going to close out with the video. Peace, 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 and love. So here we go. Y'all have to figure out how to do this. It's like scratching your head and rubbing your belly at the same time.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening mind.
I entered in silence, intellect, and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just the church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening
We
mind.
speak of capitives, diminution, and trust law with grace. Pulling veils from the statues that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn, and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was the corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, when status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the at astrological signs. The cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the
You
mind.
said know thyself, but gave no guide until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe.